Should probably activate the microphone before I start talking. Such a banger. Such a resounding, just an American classic, really. Right up there with Despacito, the other American classic. What's up, everyone? How are we doing? Man, oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man. American cultural superiority strikes again. Yeah, it really speaks to our cultural superiority that the Cubans only start producing good music once they make it to Florida. Feeling pretty excited, TBH. It really is crazy how, like, it really is all vibes. Like, it's like nothing happens, the polls don't waver, but then you investigate it, and it's like, well, the reasons the polls aren't wavering is because no one's actually polling. Everyone's just, like, asking robots what the results should be, and the robots are like, well, they should be, like, 50-50. And people are like, oh, okay, so, like, that's what the results should be. So I'm going to factor in, like, regressive analysis that will mean the polling that I've done is 50-50. And then we just get like a million of those. Dude, speaking of, this is so fucking wild. Hold on one second. Got a stain on my glasses. Got a fingerprint on them. Absolutely wild. Like, such a validation of my preconceived biases. I need to find this. Hold on one second, please. Look at this. Insane. It is insane that 3 right-leaning pollsters showed up out of nowhere to poll Iowa within 3 days of Selzer completing her fieldwork on October 31st. Literally, like, after the Iowa, 3 polls on Iowa. Not even a swing state. Like, all of a sudden, it's like, oh, actually, you know, after the Harris +3, it's like, no, hold on. We magically conducted polls in, like, 1 day. Somehow. As if that's possible. I'm telling you, man. We're gonna wake up. We're gonna wake up tomorrow. They're gonna show the early votes for North Carolina. It's gonna be like 65-35. Elon is going to commit seppuku on live TV. Look at this. Yeah, man, that's so real. So you have a poll done in Iowa in early September. Then the next poll they do in Iowa is in late September. Then Selzer puts one out in late October. And then quick 3 polls all in 2 days. That's true. That's very real. Oh my fucking god! Really? As we get closer to election day, the computers more and more are like, well, actually, it's too. They're using my logic. They're like, yeah, well, there are only 2 outcomes, so it's 50-50. Either one happens or the other. Dude, no, it's a really close. It's a really like the data is just very accurate, which is why it's all the same number over and over again. This is fucking crazy, dude. Converging on even the day before the election is like a joke. It's like a fucking joke. Is this not making you go insane? Listen, okay, I've been jokerfied by polling for a long time, all right? To me, this is like normal polling, all right? The fucking brown note, man. No noise, just a single perfect... Rosie, we're looking at the number right here. It's literally even as of November 4th. I know the scale is different, but that doesn't change the fact that it's literally all converging. It's all converging to a perfect... Here's the national poll, converging to a single perfect point. We're down to Harris plus 0.9. Nevada, converging to a single point. We're at Trump plus 0.5. But we're hovering right there. Georgia, converging to the line. I guess it's been on the line for a while. North Carolina, the line. Michigan, the line. Wisconsin, the line. Do you know what the mathematical odds are of every single one of the swing states having polling like this? 0. It's not it's not possible. Absolutely not. Fucking AI. I told you all. I told you all would end us. Yesterday, I understood your hate of AI. I won't ever recover. Good. Keep the hate in your heart for the rest of your life. What's the theory with this? Why are pollsters doing this? Watch my 2-hour live-streamed Joker-fied meltdown from last stream. Arizona is the only one diverging from the line, and it's in favor for Trump, which is probably true. I think Arizona's probably going to Trump. Stop resetting the thing. New Hampshire. I'm so tired. Don't worry, it's all almost over. Speaking of hating AI, did you see conservatives used AI to have MLK endorsing Trump? Yeah, that sounds about right.
Again and again that we cannot vote for the man that did more for the black community than any other president.
That's about right for them. This doesn't even sound remotely real. They're already showing it in history classrooms for high schoolers in Oklahoma. I listened to the whole thing. They have him calling Democrats degenerates, Lamau. Ah. Do you buy into Blue Iowa? Do you believe? Man. MLK's son rebukes this? I don't even think it's worth rebuking. I wonder how much longer we have to have this dynamic play out over and over. Delete this MAGA resource. It's vile, fake, irresponsible, and not at all reflective of what my father would say, and you gave no thought to family. This was made by a Nazi. They don't care. Son? Oh, daughter. I just read from the chat. Daughter. This was made by a Nazi. They don't care at all. They don't even remotely care. Polling simulation my friend is building. Would love your thoughts on how this works / if it's useful at all. How, for one, how could I possibly say? For two, this is AI? Are you linking me AI? Bro, did you just link me AI? Right in front of me? At least one poll tracker taking a stand calling the polls wrong. Final forecast. Da-da-da. Our 2024 national overview, including why I believe the polls are off, includes a thorough examination of our expectations in state legislative elections, previous record in them, and my experience examining state legislative polling versus president. This is not interesting to me. I work in AI. Can I get your advice on how I could make the world worse in the most efficient way possible? I'm really sorry, but I don't think I can outdo you guys. I don't think I can do any better than you guys can. What are your thoughts on Tucker Carlson going fully insane? I really hate having to say this, and I'm taking it out on you, Lily Krem, because you never stop fucking asking questions, so I'll just tell you. I have no thoughts on that because he's not going insane, okay? Tucker Carlson is one of the most transparently dishonest grifters in the entire right-wing grift sphere, okay? When he says, quote, human forces do not create nuclear technology, instead it was demons, it's because he's been kicked off Fox News and he's trying to pivot to the same audience that Alex Jones has. He hasn't gone insane. He hasn't changed his mind on anything. He just knows that there are mentally ill people online who will give him money if he pivots in this direction. He tried to go like the Twitter route. He tried to do the Dave Rubin thing, like independent media, Twitterverse, such and such. But Twitter is plummeting. Twitter's value is plummeted. His views on Twitter have plummeted. It's not workable. So instead, he's going for like a dedicated cult of schizoid Christians as a way of sustaining an income. That's it. It's not him going crazy. The misattribution, the attribution of like, oh, this right wing such and such, like they're going crazy. No, you're the one going crazy. You're misunderstanding it. Man who lies 100 million times continues telling lies that are this time a little spicier. Oh, this must be like an authentic change in the way they think. But why? I'm sure he has a lot of money. You'd be surprised. Also, people like attention. The links, the links. Did you see the post where the guy that shot bin Laden threatened to make Democrat twinks his sex slaves? Yeah, I saw that. Zoomer voice. We're Gen Z voters, and we all proudly voted for Kamala Harris. Real men support Harris. You're not men, you're boys. If there was no social media, you'd be my concubines. Bro's doubling down and still has no idea what he said. No, Jake, I'm telling you exactly what betas like you will be used for. Sex and food. Mostly food. I'm telling you, man, it's I would tweet it, post has been deleted. I'm telling you, man, it's all like sexual psychosis with these people. It's uninteresting to say over and over again, but that really is like all it is, you know? Maybe killing people isn't great for your mental health. Maybe, but, you know, plenty of Republicans who are like this who haven't killed people. We're going back to ancient Greece. We've been doing this for a while where like the Nazis on Twitter will see a beautiful woman and they'll be like, I am a gay pedophile. You know, they'll see like a girl with short hair and they'll be like, that's what towel boys looked like in Rome or something like that. This is why we took the neat emote away from you people. The Discord soundboard was the best addition. Are we going to talk about the scroll? Can somebody who's more online than me, or who's been less busy than I have, can somebody explain to me what the squirrel is? Cops killed a squirrel, conservatives mad, I guess. Why? Some guy had a squirrel in his apartment in New York City. Against the law, the cops killed it. What? Okay, what does this have to do with anything? The story of Peanut the Squirrel, an actor in a porn reality show, turns right-wing symbol. Okay. Okay, no, okay. Leaving aside any images they might include in this article, they're telling a whole story from it, okay? I don't give a shit. The squirrel was kept as a pet. It was killed because it bit a cop. They have to test rabies, but the right is blaming wokeism. Why does the right care about this specific squirrel? It was important enough to use as a closing argument the day before the election. J.D. Vance says Trump is fired up over death of Peanut the squirrel, the Elon Musk of squirrels. Okay. This squirrel was big on Instagram. Wasn't it like... It was a porn reality TV show. A gay porn, I would assume, judging from the appearance of the guy who was in the image. So what... Yeah, the Instagram posts were ads for his OnlyFans? Okay. None of you are providing me... You're all providing me little bits and pieces of information. You're not giving me the essential part. Like, none of you... Like, 100 people have chimed in and said, here's the little bit I know. You're not... You all know what I want to know, and none of you are giving it to me. There isn't anything. It's just schizophrenia. From the House Judiciary GOP official Twitter account. Justice for Peanut. From Based Electrician Third Positionist. We are not garbage. I'm sorry. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know. It's part of conservatives thinking the law doesn't apply. But the guy was an OnlyFans model. Was the OnlyFans guy even like a conservative figure, or was he just like a random OF guy who had a famous squirrel? Okay. Squirrels are illegal to keep as pets because they're rabies vectors. Why are you all providing me information I don't care about? I haven't asked a single thing about the circumstances of the squirrel's death. You're all providing me information about the logistics of the squirrel's death, or why... I don't give a shit why the squirrel died. I'm asking what the relationship is between the squirrel dying and it being made a conservative martyr. Physicists in 1900 basically accepted the Newtonian model, skipping ahead. Which brings me to my point. This event where armed officers took a pet squirrel from an individual in New York opens a Pandora's box, the horrors of leftist tyranny. 51,000 likes. All right. I think I'm done investigating this. I think. I don't really know what else there is to say about it, except maybe, like, we need to pump an enormous amount of lithium into the water supply. Like a truly like a biblical amount of lithium needs to be dumped into the municipal lines, and we need to just tap water needs to be 80% lithium, okay? When you turn the faucet on, you need like a like a clay-like brick of homogenate to be squeezed out like through a toothpaste tube, which you then have to grab and wring into your mouth like the liquid from it, you know? I want everyone to be like by weight 40% lithium. I don't know. I think they're trying to connect it back to the whole Haitians and cats thing to try to win over the We Love Cute Animals Facebook mob crowd. Do you think they might just be like genuinely mentally ill? Like fascist hysteria whips people up into a state of constant frenzy, and I think that we've reached, like, I guess it could always get worse. There's always a way for it to get worse, but I feel like we're reaching a point where it might be like increasingly difficult to. Yeah, it is like mass hysteria. It's like the dancing plague or whatever they called it, you know? It is genuinely wild. It's actually just delusions, like sane people can't reckon with it. I mean, it is like authentically almost impossible to imagine. Like, how do you talk to these people? This is one of the reasons why I'm not as debate pilled anymore. Like literally, this was again. This isn't just like random posters. The House GOP Judiciary posted about it. JD Vance mentioned it. Like this, it is at best on top. You have sane people who are cynically weaponizing like genuine mass hysteria. But for most of them, it's just the genuine mass hysteria. Check in on your like grandparents and uncles and stuff, you know? If they mention a squirrel, it might be time to it might be time. The groyperification of the GOP, Vosh? Yeah, I mean, to a large extent, yeah, kind of. It's like worse. I don't even know, man. It's fucking wild. How do we go from, oh, we should close the borders to the woke is going after the squirrels? Well, I think it's important to understand in like from a distance, it seems wild that there would be any connection. But if you think about it, the amount of evidence that it takes to rile a Republican up over the border being open and MS-13 and Tren de El Agua storming our borders is about the same amount of evidence that you need to get involved in the whole squirrel thing, right? Like, they're both hysteria, you know? One of them just seems like it might be adjacent to a real political position because it sounds like it might be something that you would arrive at logically, but they didn't arrive at it logically. They arrived at it through mass hysteria. So in reality, like, there's no difference between Republicans getting really worked up about the border, the squirrels, or anything, really, because they're all equally supported by literally no evidence. Do I break up with my girlfriend because she won't vote this election? I find you so irritating for offloading this important personal question onto me that I'm going to ban you for 30 days. I'm breaking up with you. Trump flipping New York because of that squirrel. That's true. Elon update. I mean, dude, literally, who cares? about this. I've seen a bunch of back and forth legal argumentation on this, where apparently in federal court, Elon Musk has argued that it's not a lottery because he's not actually randomly choosing who wins. He's actually choosing behind the scenes deliberately to see who will be the best spokesperson for the Trump campaign or something. I don't know. Who cares? It's a day before the election. Exactly, Alec. Musk lawyers defended the effort, calling it core political speech. We're never getting over the damn Citizens United decision. That was the beginning of the end. What'll happen if it's a total blowout for Harris? I don't know. I can't see the future. What do you mean? Why are you asking me? I don't know. Did you see Kyle's electoral map predictions? He seems very optimistic for Kamala. No, I don't see political content when I'm not streaming. What was the Citizens United decision? Google it. Did you see Pete on Jubilee? This was a really good bit. This is really, really, really funny. And I unironically respect Pete Buttigieg, who is very debate bro coded, for going on Jubilee. That is very funny to me. I heard he did quite well. I mean, which makes sense. He's Pete Buttigieg.
Wannabe government.
I'm shocked that you would make that claim. I think I would love to know what the basis of that is, some specific examples, starting with freedom of speech.
Sure. Okay, let's start with freedom of speech. So Donald Trump has said that he wants to revoke the licenses of television networks that have broadcast coverage that he disagrees with.
That's true.
I can't think of a more direct attack on the freedom of speech than a government official or a wannabe government official saying, I want to punish a television network because of their journalism, right? So that's how I feel about free speech.
I saw the first time you said...
There's also more personal rights. A woman's right to choose, my right to have this ring on my finger, that I feel are much more secure if she's in charge than if he's in charge.
And the evidence you have of Donald Trump being against gay marriage or wanting to roll back protections for gay folks to be married is what?
The evidence is that he ran...
Who is this woman? What is her political affiliation? Is she Republican or is she like a Jill Stein voter or what? At the end of the video, 5 people said they'd be voting for Jill Stein. It's just undecided. Gotcha. So it's people like Jubilee assembled like a pantheon of retards to run through. Gotcha.
Or wanting to roll back protections for gay folks to be married is what?
The evidence is that he ran for president with a platform that specifically said in black and white that they were against marriage equality.
And like this is today.
So they've kind of rubbed that out of the platform since the last time he ran for president, but the people he put on the court are contributing to a majority that already took away a woman's right to choose and doesn't seem...
Also, literally every single state GOP has removing gay marriage on the docket, and all of them, like, here the real question is, like, how many of these guys that were like very recently vocally anti-gay marriage, how many of them have since changed their mind and said they're pro-gay marriage, or how many of them have just stayed quiet? Because if you used to oppose something and now you're just quiet, that's not the same as you now supporting it. That's you biding your time. Yes, and Clarence Thomas did explicitly say he wants to overturn gay marriage, yeah.
seemed very interested in protecting my right to marry, nor did he do anything to help get that legislation passed. When
Ruth
the Biden
Bader
Harris administration
Ginsburg
passed
didn't
it.
think that Roe v. Wade was the appropriate statute on which to be hanging reproductive freedom. And
Irrelevant to the argument being made.
Obama campaigned in 2007. There was a bill introduced to the 110th Congress, H.R. 1964, the Freedom of Choice Act. He campaigned. The first thing I'm going to do as president is sign that bill. Once he was elected, I quote, "not my highest legislative priority."
Yeah, that was bad. And then gay marriage happened.
I don't know why I should actually trust Democrats to enshrine reproductive rights.
Yeah, again, like, I don't believe people like this believe what they're saying. You can tell this is a Jill Stein voter because she's lying through her teeth. This is the classic, like, because I have doubts about Democrats, I will defend the objectively indefensible position that Republicans are actually better than Democrats on the issues where Democrats are always better than Republicans, but not as good as they claim to be. This woman was Trump-leaning. She's not one of the Jill Stein voters. It doesn't matter whether or not she's voting for Jill Stein. She's in that camp. Guarantee it 100%. Who the fuck votes for Trump on the basis that actually, Democrats aren't good enough at protecting gay marriage? Are you insane? That's the kind of thing that people, at best, don't vote on. No one's actively voting for Trump on that kind of ticket, not unless they're openly lying, which she is. Complete waste of time. Wow, Carrillo, really? That's so interesting. I give warnings too, man. For all it fucking matters. Let's see. The Proud Boys have regrouped and are signaling election plans. That's nice. All right, Wall Street Journal. Let me see if I can't get through this one. I cannot. They defeated me. While it isn't clear what the far-right group is planning or how coordinated its plans are... Okay, so there's no information to go over anyway. No shit group chats for the Proud Boys are going to be active on fucking November 4th, you know? Run through these damn links.
I mean, if a friend came over for a beer and sat down next to me on the couch and said, "Hey, man, I just want you to know that I love you and your relationship is really important to me," I would find it extremely awkward. I would not have an eloquent response. It would be something like, cool.
Are you telling me you'd be flustered? Like you'd blush a little bit? Like you'd blush a little bit and stammer out a response and like look down at the ground a little bit? You fucking gay?
Thanks, man. So anyway, did you watch the game last night? It wouldn't even matter what game, any game. I just want to be changed.
Well, yeah, because you probably don't actually follow sports, so you would have to be non-specific. Just like an aesthetic flourish.
The subject, basically, would be the goal there.
All right, well, that's good. Lots of good stuff to run through there. A good life to lead.
And I said, First Lady, see, this is a little bit of a weave. You see those stars? First Lady, book, boom. But you got to always bring it back. When it comes to a time when it doesn't meet at the bottom, then it's time to say, let's not do this shit anymore. We won't do this anymore. But, so what happened is Van Jones, and I said, First Lady, see, this is a little bit of a weave. You see those stars? First Lady, book, boom. But you got to always bring it back. When it comes to a time when it doesn't meet at the bottom, then it's time to say, let's not do this shit anymore. We won't do this anymore.
History is not going to look very positively on this country, man, I have to say. One of the things that I keep thinking is, like, how the fuck do Republicans have any money left? They have been targeted by the most aggressive grifters in, like, the world. How do you have any money left? Where's the money coming from? I get the billionaires have it, but, like, listen, okay, I don't want to come across as classist, but if you're poor and Republican at this point, I'm just going to assume that it's because you've spent like 30% of your income donating to Trump and buying shit like this. Every partisan right-leaning network, it's like a combination, like Himmler radio broadcast paired with the Home Shopping Network. It's insane. The elderly scam we saw the other day is probably a big part of it, TBH. Yeah. Meet the conservative women who are keeping their votes for Kamala Harris a secret. Uh-huh. Man, I do feel bad for these women, but I can't help but feel a bit of contempt towards them at the same time. I feel like in a lot of cases they're spineless. It's like it's like the systemic problem, but individually also, right? Like, you can point to systemic issues that lead to black crime rates or whatever, and you can point that out and go like, hey, you need to fix the systemic issues. You can't just say individually, hey, stop being born in the ghetto. What are you talking about? But also, like, on an interpersonal level, if I met someone who, I don't know, shot some other guy in the corner for drug money, I would say, that was probably bad of you to do. I think that was cringe. That is a spider dangling off one of my studio lights. One sec. I lived. Did the spider live? Yes. Yes, it did. Their message is aimed at conservative-leaning women like T, whom we're calling by her first initial. T, who is in her 60s and lives in Wisconsin, asked for anonymity to discuss how living in a politically divided household is affecting her marriage of more than 40 years. He's frustrated with me that I won't listen to him plead his case. I can't and I won't, she explained. How are you in this relationship? I genuinely, like, don't get it. I don't understand how a person can be. It's one thing if you're in a loveless relationship due to circumstances beyond your control, but for a lot of these women, the implication from the way they talk about this is very much like, oh, he's such a sweetheart, and I just tune him out when he starts screaming, you know, frothing at the mouth about wanting to drink the blood of immigrants or something, you know? Husband got brain melted over the years, many such cases. I'm not gonna lie, I really feel like if that's the case, it's your responsibility as a wife to maybe direct your husband in a bit. I understand that in a lot of relationships that dynamic is impossible because the men are awful, but if that's the case, if they're awful enough that you can't direct them like that, like, they just don't talk about politics probably, I don't get that either. A shocking amount of couples don't communicate at all. Yeah, that really seems to be the case. They don't talk about anything of value. They talk about, like, the day or what they're doing that day. They don't there's no, like, higher level engagement, I guess. I don't know, man. I mean, we're talking about people who grew up during the age of TV where the biggest punchline was my bitch wife. So, excuse me. I mean, a ton of these women are literally an abuse dynamic. Yeah, I understand that. But also, like, and pardon me for, you know, being a little chauvinistic about it. But like I do feel the spinelessness in a lot of cases is a bit contemptuous. I don't know. Doesn't mean you're a bad person. There are a lot of circumstances where you can't do much about it, but sometimes it's like, you can only hear the same story so many times. Hey, I'm a 55-year-old woman, my husband is objectively evil, but like, you know, okay. When I see the image of like every third hetero couple, and the girl is like, hey, did you read the Salon article that I emailed you? And the guy has the t-shirt that says most racist man alive. I don't only feel contempt for the guy. Like, the guy isn't the only contemptible figure in that caricature, you know? I do get it for rural couples. I mean, past the point you have like the sunk cost fallacy and there's only so much you can do and such. But I feel like this attitude often started somewhere. Like, you don't begin 40 years into a relationship, right? And you know what? And you know what? For a lot of these white couples that are in their 60s and 70s in the Midwest, you're not fooling me. You're not getting me to feel sympathetic. I know what these motherfuckers were doing when they were kids, okay? A lot of these people were literally growing up in like the 60s and 70s and 80s. You're telling me that in a lot of the cases here, they weren't both like pretty bad politically? And then it just, over time, they just like, it tapered out because they didn't want to make their frothing bigotry like a day-to-day part of their life? And then like the MAGA movement reignited that in the guys because the MAGA movement is extremely like chauvinistic, and it didn't reignite it in the women, and the women have kind of shifted off more due to like abortion rights stuff. Like, listen, okay, I'm not falling for the white women defense. This phenomenon with like, oh, we're both 60 and my husband's awful, but like, you know, he's a sweetheart otherwise. This is a white thing. I'm not saying it doesn't happen in other racial dynamics. I'm just saying this is definitely like a pronounced phenomenon in this context. T says she mailed her absentee ballot from another family member's home to avoid a confrontation with her husband over her support for Harris. It's not that he would ever stop me or anything. It's that I can't deal with that animosity, she said with an audible sigh. T said she'd voted Republican her entire adult life. Yeah. Until Trump became the nominee in 2016. She describes Trump as misogynistic and a buffoon. Yeah. One of those moments when Trump held up a Bible in front of a church near the White House after calling in police to shut down a protest in 2020. This is when Trump held up the Bible upside down, and he called in like riot police to disperse a peaceful protest, just so he could have a photo op of him holding the Bible upside down. I remember. I was horrified. That was actually when I left the Republican Party, Kay says. She lives in a red state in the Midwest and asked that we use her first initial because of fear of losing her job. Kay said she hasn't told most of her family, including her husband, that she's voting for Harris. He assumes I'm voting Republican. I just listen to him talk about his views, and I just nod my head and go, uh-huh. And I'm thinking, yeah, and my nieces have less bodily autonomy and rights at their ages than I had. I hate you too, lady. Why aren't you saying anything? You're not defending your children? And your nieces? You're just going to, like, I know that there's an element of like, well, then he kills her with a lead pipe. Okay, I get it. But that's not the case for all of these dynamics. The kids aren't there. Yeah, but like still having like, don't you think that weighs on a family having like a bigot grandpa who like rambles and rambles about how Tren de Aragua is overriding like overrunning Colorado, and his wife is just like, okay, but internally she disagrees. Like, come on, we can't write over every instance of spinelessness on account of the potential for domestic abuse. I know it's a factor, but like, damn. I really think that to a lot of, I mean, these people were Republicans up until recently, you know? It's not like they have principles At least they don't have the right principles. Also, and you know what? And you know, I'm going to take a step further. I'm going to say that probably a lot of families are really tainted by having that, like, surly, grumpy, borderline abusive patriarch who is a right-wing dipshit, but nobody calls them on it because they're old or because they figure it, like, he's too old, so it's like, you know, who even cares? He'll be dead soon. Or we don't want to upset the family dynamic. We don't want to upset the family dynamic by challenging our fucking Hitlerite grandpa, so we're just going to let him ruin every single family event that we all go to. He like every time he will find something to fuck up the whole event, but we all have to kowtow to him. I am attacking that behavior. If you allow that shit to happen, like, you are enabling it. You're an enabler. Like, if it's a grandpa, he's not gonna fucking kill you. He's old. His bones will dissolve into dust if he tries. You can like make fun of him and say he's garbage or whatever, and walk slowly backwards, and he'll never catch up to you. You can do like you can do whatever. Uninvite him from parties. Talk to people about it. I don't know. I don't respect the enabling. We need like a genuine national divorce from these people, okay? You can't keep because half the reason, the only way people fall into bad ideologies is by being immersed in communities that encourage and tolerate it. If people are in communities that don't tolerate it, people generally don't join those ideologies. That's why the internet has been so big for extremism. Because before, if you really wanted to stick your dick in a toaster, you would tell, like, I don't know, your first girlfriend in high school, and she would say, don't be a retard. But nowadays, if you Google dicktoasterfuck.com, you find 1,000 other people who agree with you, and then you fall in, and you're posting like updates every day, like, you know, update, unplug the toaster only 6 seconds before putting my dick in, still toasty and warm, but not enough to burn. What about you guys? Posting pictures of it, like, and videos, and now you've ruined your life. There would be a lot less of this shit if people in these family dynamics would actually challenge the people who are ruining it for everyone. That's all I'm saying. Vosh, this was my family until I started speaking out against my dad. He's dead now and my mom is voting for Kamala. Holy shit, you debated him so well that he died? It's incredible. That's a tactic. Really, though, like, good on you for standing up for yourself. But a lot of the time is conflict is what they want. Yeah, which is why when I say shut them down, I don't mean debate them. If you have a shitty family member who ruins every single group event by like, oh, you're telling me Kamala isn't actually, wasn't a prostitute in Harlem in 1967? Let's debate about it. Here are some photos. They love conflict because they're often abrasive assholes who enjoy being angry at other people. Don't engage with them. They're never going to change their mind if they're at that point. Just call them like a disruptive retard who no one likes. I'm not joking. You can work the dynamic out with your family. Maybe your family doesn't like the retard word. I don't know. I can't really speak to that. I don't go to larger family events, probably for good reason, because a lot of my extended family is in Florida, Alabama, Georgia, and Texas. So it's probably to my benefit and theirs that I stay kind of like cordoned off to my own community, which is fine by my, you know, I would, what are they going to do? Kill me? Honestly, I'd probably ruin it for them. Just make them feel unwelcome. Or you could just leave. If you're at a family event, like Thanksgiving's coming up, if you're at Thanksgiving and your dipshit MAGA uncle or whatever won't shut the fuck up, you can literally say like, this is ridiculous. You ruin every event. No one here likes listening to you. I'm just going to leave. I'm not interested. You're a waste of space. And just leave. If you blow it all up, how much do you even care about the dynamic that you have with so much of your extended family? Because they're the abrasive assholes, they get to decide whether or not you're friends? Why doesn't it go both ways? Why don't you get to decide that? Now, I get it if you're like 16 and you're still like your parents will disown you or some shit. Don't be stupid. I'm saying that there are a lot of people who are still like 22, 23, 24. Your family's shit Or maybe your family's just tolerant or like enabling, and your extended family shit, and you just like roll along with it because you have to. Put your feet down. Plant your fucking feet in the ground. I'm not even saying you necessarily have to blow it all up, you know? I'm saying that like you have to exercise some personal autonomy, because if you don't and you just sit there passively, you're an enabler, which is worse than just being a victim. You're a victim and you're like perpetuating the circumstances of your own victimhood. You're enabling it. And by the way, it's not good for them either, okay? If you have a dumbass MAGA uncle who ruins every family get together with this kind of shit, trust me, their life's not going great. Okay, these guys gonna die of a fucking heart attack at like 58. Their blood pressure's through the roof. Like, they're not living a good life. They're angry and miserable, and they don't connect with the people around them, and they're not socially competent enough to understand that everyone in their family hates them. Look, I'm again, exercise personal discretion. If you think like, oh, my parents will hit me with a brick if I do that, like, you know, don't be stupid. But I'm just saying, like, generally, let's just finish the article, okay? Let's just finish the article. A, who's 35 and lives in Illinois, asked we only use her first initial because she's worried about backlash from her religious community. She says she voted for Trump in the last 2 elections. Christ. But after a period of soul-searching, decided to vote for Harris this time. She says she was teetering about whether to vote at all, in part out of fear of criticism if anyone close to her found out how she voted. Look, I respect you changing your mind. I respect that. That's respectable. That's a difficult thing to do. That's respectable. It's a difficult thing to do. I'm not shaming a person for the process of changing your mind. It's just frustrating. Like, here, A says she's keeping her vote a secret from her boyfriend, and especially her father, committed Republican. She said she thought about her daughters making the decision. Okay, let me put it this way. If you thought about your daughters when you were making that decision, how do you feel about your daughters growing up under the boyfriend and the grandfather that you have to keep this vote a secret from? Like, if you're motivated by some like greater consideration here, it's not just about the vote. Black folk don't be keeping the vote secret from the family. That's not impressive. You all vote Democrat. I've seen the numbers. I'll tell you who's keeping the vote secret. It's the like 19-year-old black guys who are into crypto who are voting for Trump. They're the ones who keep the vote secret, okay? It's the opposite dynamic there, okay? You go to a fucking Black Thanksgiving and you're like, yeah, I voted for Trump, then they're going to beat you to death with the fucking collard greens, okay? I understand. And you deserve it. With the goddamn okra. True. Again, look, like, I'm sympathetic. I'm not with it's not a lack of sympathy. I just know that in a lot of cases the vote is being treated like this distinct thing, like this in a vacuum, this moral consideration, but then for the rest of your life it's like, well, okay, I'm also like, I'm concerned about what Trump would do for women's rights, but I will now as a woman spend my entire life under the thumb of like a chauvinistic father, boyfriend, such and such. Like, you know, I won't take any agency over my own life. There are just a lot of like sad older white women who have wasted their lives because they've spent their whole life kowtowing to the conservative men. And in a lot of cases, they don't really have too much of a choice. But like, then the kids grow up, and the dad is shitty, like abusive and emotionally distant and right-wing, of course, and the mom is quietly right-wing, but in private moments she'll be like, yeah, your father and I don't really don't really agree on that necessarily. But it doesn't like protect the kids, you know? It's like a moment of quiet sympathy in a life of tiptoeing around the shitty dad. I know I'm not unsympathetic. I'm not saying that like these women are all evil. I get it's a difficult dynamic. For a lot of them, having like divorcing, leaving with the kid, that would be like a huge, like a almost impossible thing. So I get that. It's just frustrating. It's just frustrating. That's it. Maybe, Mr. Wynn. Vosh, you sound pretty shitty, honestly. Yeah, well, they crucified Christ, so, you know, I stand in good company. This is one of those subjects where if you talk real, someone will get mad. Like, unfortunately, like you can cushion any statement that is correct with as many caveats and I understands and I'm sympathetics as you want. But like, ultimately, you have to just make the point eventually. So, you know. I think politics is just not that important to them. I don't believe that. I don't believe that politics could be unimportant to someone who is actively hiding their vote from their family. You know? I think they have to know it's important because otherwise they would just avoid the you know, abrasion and not vote at all. They would just disengage from it entirely. They'd be like, okay, whatever. I don't think it's that they don't think it's important. I just think that a lot of people don't have a good model of how to engage with politics in a way that kind of accounts for their whole life and everything in it. It's got to be a really bad dating environment for young women, man. Really, really bad. I guess women at every level, and I know that America ain't the worst of it, but like, god damn, man. South Korean gender politics incoming, yeah. Getting ready. Lesbians are having a great time. Correction, I have been on Twitter, and my understanding is that lesbians are always miserable and complaining. Can you blame them? They're always around other women. Hey, woo, woo, slide whistle. You hear the slide whistle when I did the thing? Yeah, got him. Hey. Unrelated, but you're looking awesome right now. Those colors are insane. Thank you. It's an engineered garments flannel that I got on sale a while ago, like very on sale, like $265 down to $60 or something. Which I quite like. This is the first time I've worn it, and also the Henley is indigo, so it fades where it gets worn. You see how it's already fading on the shoulders? Super exciting to have, like, after a while of wearing, to have like very distinct patterns. What material is the Henley? Cotton and hemp. So it's pretty light for the winter, which is why I'm wearing the flannel over it. Because hemp is a pretty breathable material. You're inside? I mean, it's still cold. I don't run heat in my room. I'm happy to hear that, Hester Carcosa. Sorry, that name took me a bit. Thank you, Flavier. I thought you hated the Midwest. Why wear flannel? Oh, God, the Midwest doesn't own flannel. Filson is literally a Seattle company, and they're all about the flannel plus the canvas jacket, okay? Come on. Pacific Northwest? Before Silicon Valley bled into Seattle, flannel was the uniform of the Pacific Northwest, okay? Now everyone just wears puffer jackets. Midwest steals West Coast drip, then claims it. Okay, you know what? Maybe the Midwest just steals Canadian drip. Maybe you all get your shit from Minnesota, and then Minnesota just gets their drip from Canada. And maybe Canadians only get their drip from, like, I don't know, whatever the Gap has on sale that day because they're practically minded. I don't know. Don't diss Minnesota, freak. I'm not dissing Minnesota. I'm just saying it like that, you know? For fun. Will there be an issue of conservative men being more abusive with their partners if Harris wins? I don't know, probably. It's kind of like in Britain, domestic abuse calls go up by like 40% anytime a game happens or something. Dems worry, what happens if the speaker's race isn't over by January 6th? No one knows, though Democrats are bracing for that possible scenario. So this is the big like election steal concern. Legal Eagle put out a good video talking about the, well, legal elements of the election steal. And the good news is that the election steal... Okay, so let's assume Kamala Harris wins by an acceptable margin. Like, we're not talking like 50.1 to 49.9 in all these states. We're talking like enough of a margin that we know she wins. We don't have to worry about the old form of the election steal quite as much. The reason for that being that a bunch of the courts and the local county election boards have basically been preparing for this ever since 2020, and they are ready for like the avalanche that's coming their way. In terms of security, getting stuff counted quickly, fast tracking legal challenges, there's a bunch of like preparations that have been made to deal with basically 2020 happening all over again. However, now we have this. House Democrats are increasingly alarmed by a potential threat to the transfer of presidential power. A protracted failure by Republicans to select a speaker if the GOP keeps control of the chamber, of the House. The House convenes on January 3rd to elect a speaker, just a few days before Congress is supposed to certify the results of this year's election. Chat, test your knowledge. What date do they certify the results of the year's election? It's a famous date. That was me, like, you get it. And it's unclear if Republicans, should they win a House majority, would elect a speaker in time. In January 2023, it took them 15 ballots and roughly 4 days to eventually select Kevin McCarthy. The inability of a fractious Republican conference to choose a leader would render the House virtually powerless. I love the genius of our founding fathers, where they built this big system and then they were like, yeah, if just a few people in this system decide that they want to like put their feet in the ground and not do their job, everything grinds to a halt and they have infinite power. If you know, Mitch McConnell just doesn't want to put forward the Obama, fucking Supreme Court justice pick, doesn't want to put it down to a Senate vote, that's how it is. Midas Touch did a segment on this with a House Democrat. The House Democrat was like, well, I just hope Dems win the House, shrugs. That's great. Unable to do anything except keep voting to pick a speaker. If that fight dragged on for more than 3 days, it would threaten Congress's ability to hold a constitutionally mandated joint session on January 6, 2025 to certify the results of the presidential election. The insane thing is that in a working system, the obvious solution to this would be if there is not a new speaker chosen in time for the January 6th certification, you just use the old speaker That's it. The fact that it's like, well, no, you actually have to have it done in 3 days or you can't do anything. But their term is ended. It doesn't matter. I know it's ended. It doesn't matter. That's insane. That'd be like if you're parents and you're leaving for a night out in the town because you want to like revive the spark in your marriage and your babysitter is late. You don't just leave and hope your kids are still alive when the babysitter arrives. Like, I'm sorry, you always need to have a functioning Congress. You can have breaks, but there always needs to be someone there for the fucking certification of the vote. You can't have a break during January 6th. You just have to stay. I'm sorry. They're calling me in for one last job just before retirement. I'm sorry. I don't care if it's that. I don't care if the president gets to put their foot down and decide. There needs to be something. The fact that there's no caveat. Like a temporary speaker, I don't know. Maybe this is Trump's little secret. This is Trump's little secret. Basically, everyone has agreed this is Trump's little secret. He was looking at Mike Johnson because he's an idiot and his brain is melted. He flat out like looked at Mike Johnson and was like, "Here's our secret to steal the election with the House specifically that we won't tell them about, but we'll tell you after the election." That would set up a constitutional crisis with no obvious solution. Vosh, what you're saying would mean that a speaker could retain power far past their term? What's happening now is that they can just, by not holding the vote, they can indefinitely delay the next president! This is so much worse! Congressional aides and constitutional experts have been puzzling over the scenario for months and have yet to arrive at a strategy. Great! Congress is legally required to convene on January 6th to certify the election results, but without a speaker, the House won't be able to establish rules governing how it operates. And members who would need to vote on any successful objection can't be sworn in until after those rules are adopted. Oh yeah, for those of you who don't know, for those of you who aren't American or don't follow, believe it or not, every new Congress has to like reaffirm the rules of being in Congress because they decide on them. So like in a situation where you don't have a House Speaker, there's no, like, they can't do anything until that process is started. They can't just hit the ground running on the old rule set or anything. It is required every time that they be like, oh, here's the like 172nd Congress. Here's the system. We need to like formally vote on it. We can't hit the ground running on the old system and then like backtrack the new vote or something. So the House determines the president, not the Electoral College? No. The House certifies the results. It's a ceremonial role. It's insane. It's a ceremonial role that we all agree they can't say no to. It's purely ceremonial. The January 6th certification of the votes is literally just a handing off of the torch. It's not no decision is being made. The next presidential administration could be indefinitely postponed because of a ceremonial. Members would need to vote, and any successful objection can't be sworn in until after those rules are adopted. McCarthy's successor, Speaker Mike Johnson, is hoping he can avoid the problems of his predecessor and get elected quickly, a concept that was considered standard practice before 2023. But some members of his conference have questioned his leadership. Hold on. If they can benefit from delaying... The spider's still there. It actually did live. Is the spider okay? Statistically speaking, yes. With open musing about whether they should vote for him as speaker again. This has unnerved Democrats, many of whom are still rattled by GOP efforts to subvert the election in 2020 and last year's weeks-long speakership fight. Behind the scenes, they're bracing for another days-long speakership brawl if Republicans win the House. As a result of the protracted Republican infighting in 2023, we are concerned about the possibility that a similarly messy speaker fight could slip past January 6th. Again, to be clear, if it is to the benefit of Republicans to not have a new Speaker of the House selected by January 6th, they would just deliberately prolong the voting process and prevent the House from convening the joint session. Staff are looking into that scenario, as it's unclear how Congress would be able to comply with the Constitution's demands for a joint session when the House effectively doesn't exist. And guys, guess who gets to resolve disputes in moments of constitutional crisis? Guess which branch of government has the final say? There's less concern about the scenario if Democrats flip the House. Yeah, well, yeah. If Democrats get the House, none of this is really an issue. How likely is it the House goes to the GOP? Pretty likely, I'd say. Again, like, polling doesn't matter. Polling doesn't make sense. So, I don't know. I thought Dems were favored to win back the House. I've heard some back and forthing on this. I'm a little cynical about the House personally. I know that we overperformed in 2022, but there's something, I don't know, call it a ill omen. I earlier this morning, I thought about the House, and then a crow cawed and like flew off a power line and into the sky. It's a bad vibe. More reliable than polling, TBH. That's how I feel. If Trump wins, he could help quash or at least defang Johnson's headache by throwing his support behind Louisiana. There's another complication. If the House can't seat its own members, it also can't take steps necessary to facilitate the January 6th joint session, which occurs in the House chamber. New Congresses that convene after presidential elections typically pass a resolution on January 3rd, the first day of their session, formally greenlighting the joint session. So, chat, workshop this with me. Let's say Republicans keep the House and attempt to indefinitely delay the nomination of a speaker in order to push things back past January 6th. Question number one, why don't Democrats just vote for a speaker? Rather than voting for, say, Hakeem Jeffries, Democrats could throw all their votes behind one of the viable Republican candidates, guaranteeing their victory and thus ending the stalemate. That is something they could do. Is it within their power legally to just delay on holding the vote at all? I mean, how willing do you think they would be to just to engage in a level of obstructionism that was on par with what Mitch McConnell did back in 2015, where they're basically just like flat out, no, we're not even holding a vote, or like we're going to pretend there's a reason to not hold the vote. Like they would say something like, we're not going to hold a vote on this until the concerns about the election's viability are quashed, because we still have 70,000 ongoing lawsuits in a bunch of swing states over whether or not this was like, whether or not like a leprechaun actually flipped the votes after they went into the Dominion voting machine. Though if they did that, at that point, that would be a level of obstructionism that would be like at that point, you know, Mike Johnson might as well just walk around the Capitol building with a gun shooting Democrats, you know? Like that would be a level of obstructionism that would be so blatant that I feel like Dems would have a procedural reason to cut through it, you know? Isn't the flaw with this plan that it just makes Joe Biden stay president? Nope. The real thing they would want to cause is confusion, to toss the confusion over to the Supreme Court. But on January 20th, Joe Biden is no longer president. So the real goal, I think, would be if you tossed the authority to resolve a certification vote delay to the Supreme Court, what could the Supreme Court possibly say that would benefit Trump? Like, obviously, the Supreme Court could write in crayon, like, Trump is president. But, like, again, there are limits to the plausible deniability, you know? What could they say? What could they say? I feel like they couldn't. I feel like this plan might be really pathetic and desperate. I think this plan is actually really desperate from Republicans. If they hold the House but lose the presidency, I don't know if this actually gets them that much. I think the most they could get from this would be like a constitutional crisis where the Supreme Court fumbles but doesn't, like, I don't know if they could deliver a Trump presidency through this. I don't think there's any mechanism. Again, like they could write in crayon, like, oh, he's president. But again, like at that point, like the Supreme Court could just say that tomorrow. You know, like if you wanna operate on the assumption that they will ignore the rules so flagrantly that everyone, even liberals, will look at it and go like, we're not respecting that. We don't care what you have to say. Bolshevik, you're completely correct. It seems like the only thing that they would really be successful in doing is create more leeway for their other election stealing schemes. But that's not that much. Like that's not a very big, that's not a very scary plan. It's like a potential constitutional crisis, but it would just look like a tantrum. You know? I don't think, like, they couldn't mount that into anything. They would have to do something else in addition to it. So what's the something else? Well, the only other something else I can think of is one that involves the House. The aforementioned, like, they deny the elector slate so no candidate reaches 270 electoral votes, so the vote goes to the House, and the House is Republican, so the Republican House votes for Donald Trump. But that requires them to have the House in play, so at that point, why even delay? To give a little bit more time for them to cook up some election fraud schemes? How much time are you going to buy with that? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think this is actually that scary. It's just weird. I'm less pessimistic about SCOTUS than you. I don't think Roberts and Coney Barrett would overturn the Democratic result. You're probably correct about that, and that's one of the reasons why I'm saying there are limits to what the Supreme Court are willing to do. Roberts and Coney Barrett are Republicans. They're not both like insane, frothing at the mouth, insurrectionist lunatics. You know, they're not like Clarence Thomas. If there was like a decision Clarence Thomas could make to kill you personally with a gun, he would sign yes, and he would ask for the gun. Like, he is actually a fucking psychopath. Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett are, I mean, they're Republicans and everything that comes with it, but they're not, I think they're closer to being neocons. Alito too, yes, Alito as well. Alito and Clarence Thomas would both do that. But Kavanaugh has not been as, like, militantly insurrectionist as people have expected him to be. Amy Coney Barrett has been downright, like, neocon at points. With some of her reasoning. Have you read her reasonings? I know most of the time you get, like, we read the Clarence Thomas stuff on stream because he's the lunatic, so we, like, go over his stuff. And also, I'm not a legally oriented content creator. Yeah, Amy Coney Barrett's woke, you know? I think Kavanaugh's just a coward. Yeah, probably. Okay, well, I guess, like, thinking about this logically, I guess it is nice to feel comfortable assuming that this is likely not much of a kill shot. That's good to think about. That's nice. Only if Dems win. No, even if Republicans win, the House, I mean, this plan is not that scary. Trump's lead over Harris in betting market erodes as platforms tighten odds. Everything just goes right back to 50-50. Elon must be so sad that he never got Polymarket up to 69% for Trump. God. A poll in Montana makes the GOP look really bad. From Lukeman, we did a last Montana poll. I've shut off replies. I'd be shutting off replies after this one, too. Holy shit. Here's the details. Top lines, President Trump 51, Harris 39, other 5. In Montana, Tester +4. Boys, Montana's in play. Get ready for the Montana sweep. Blondana. They never thought it was possible. Kunst did so fucking good against Holly. Yeah. Every state is a swing state this time. How fucking funny would it be if the only pollsters that ended up being correct were the ones that were polling in like decidedly non-swing states and just wildly like somehow just nailed the assessment? I mean, what margins did Trump win Montana back in 2020? 2020 Montana election. What was it, like 35, 40 points? No, actually, closer than I thought. He won it by 16 in 2020, but by 20 in 2016. I didn't realize that he'd gone down by 4 points in Montana. Man, Montana's gotten woke. The real difference here, though, would be relative turnout. See, in this poll, Trump has only 51%, but in 2020, he had 57%. So even though the relative numbers are not that different from 2020, Trump's support would have gone down by 6 points. Assuming this poll is accurate, but that would be quite special. Please look at the most recent New Hampshire poll. We'll post it. Here's the 2018 Montana Senate race for comparison. Remember when we were a real country? Pretty darn close. This was before I was following politics consistently. Thank you, Topazius. Hey, Vosh just dropped off my ballot. What, only one? Vosh, you're misunderstanding the plan. The House doesn't decide who becomes president by a simple majority. Each state is allowed one vote. I know. I'm aware of that. Yeah. But we weren't talking about that plan. We were talking about this different one about delaying the certification. I still don't understand how Polymarket is legal. Well, I mean, political betting is legal now, or gambling. That was a pretty recent decision. Do states give votes to the Electoral College proportional to the popular votes those candidates receive? No. with the exceptions of only 2 states which have a separate district. But even then, no. It's all or nothing in the district that the votes are counted in. Because we have such a good system. I live in Montana. We have some pretty progressive shit going down. We have constitutionally protected abortion on the ballot and a vote to go to an open voting system. Do you have any polling on the abortion referendum on the ballot? The constitutional amendment, I mean? Are the Dems afraid that a Republican speaker won't certify the election like what Vance wanted to do? Republican speaker doesn't certify the election. The election is certified on January 6th by the sitting VP, which is, of course, Kamala Harris. So the situation we're looking for here is Kamala Harris certifying her own vote, which has happened before. I never got the New Hampshire poll. Is this the one you're talking about? Okay, this is ridiculous. Harris plus 28? Come on. Nothing. Where are you going to get plus 28 Harris anything? California? Maybe? Real? Truth nuke. We need a truth nuke emote. Real. Yeah, you'd have to go to DC to get margins this steep. What if real though? I mean, if real, then fucking tomorrow is going to be the funniest day in American political. There will never before in history will there have been such a gap between the average poll and the actual results. That would be a truth nuke. What would the Electoral College look like if Harris wins New Hampshire by 28? All I know is that the map of the United States would look like the ocean. Insider advantage, right-wing pollster has Trump only up 6 in Iowa. Yeah, we saw these like cheap polls they crapped out at the last second to counter the Seltzer poll. But even this, like, up 6.8 in Iowa, that's what you're bragging about? That's what you're contesting the results with? A one-day poll. Ohio Senate tied. Wait, let me guess. It's converging to a 50-50. Wow. I really like how blatant it is here. We're literally on the last day, November 4th, the day before the election, it becomes the brown note. Phenomenal. It's just a coincidence. It's just a coincidence that every swing state and every pivotal election, that all of them that people thought might be close, went to exactly 50-50 on the last day. That's great. Really modeling the hell out of reality right now. Just going to repost the CNN interview with her from last night. Hold on one second. Let me just like remind myself what New Hampshire usually goes. 2020 presidential New Hampshire. Yeah, Joe Biden won it by 7. Harris plus 28 is genuinely like the funny. This is crazy, man. Okay, this is what I'm saying when I talk about variance in polling, you know? This is what I'm talking about. We pulled 20 of the best baristas in the state. Listen, this poll is definitely wrong. I choose to believe it completely. Oh, whoops. I didn't mean to. Well, I'll click on it. Sure. I believe in it completely. Anyone who doesn't believe in the Harris plus 28, 26, Harris plus 28 New Hampshire, you're going to get hit by a truth nuke. The truth fallout is going to dissolve your telomeres. Your DNA is going to be unraveling and floating through your blood like loose spaghetti. The truth nuke is going to kill your entire family. Me? I'm riding the truth nuke, okay? I'm completely unburdened. If you have one data point, Vosh, New Hampshire plus 28, what's your election prediction? My election prediction is basically the Kamala Harris Hyperborea image. If New Hampshire plus 28, it's the only data point that I have to go off of. Listen, it's a 50-50 chance, okay? Either the truth nuke hits or it doesn't. Show chat the image. I don't want to get in trouble. I do really want to see the interview, though.
Well, earlier we showed you that surprising new poll out of Iowa. It shows Vice President Harris up 3 points over the former president, 47% to 44%, which is a big turnaround from the same poll in September. Now that...
Do you think Cooper's skin feels like skin, or do you think it feels like the way the androids in the Alien franchise would feel? You know what I mean? Like he would be filled with milk instead of blood? Like, how old is he? I mean, he looks phenomenal. I'm not digging on him at all. It's just like... $57 and not a single visible pore.
Number is still within the margin of error, so there's no clear leader. But a swing like this, and from such a well-respected pollster with a long track record in Iowa, has some wondering if this could be an indication that Harris may overperform in the Midwest Tuesday night, including even in battlegrounds like Wisconsin. Today, while speaking in Pennsylvania, the former president attacked the pollster and said the poll was intentionally skewed to favor Harris.
You know things are looking not so great for Republican internals if they're going out of their way to attack an Iowa pollster just a few days before the election. Like, there is absolutely no way an outlier poll in this environment would reasonably sway the election. It really does make me think, and I maybe it's copium, it really does make me think that Republicans are fully aware of their internals looking bad, and they're relying on the ambiguity, like the everything being 50-50, as a way to prop up their arguments for all the stop the steal bullshit we're going to be subjected to. Like, they don't want people to think it's going to be a landslide because then everyone will just accept that Donald Trump lost. You know?
I got a poll. I'm 10 points up in Iowa. One of my enemies just puts out a poll. I'm 3 down. Why do they announce a poll that's highly skewed toward Democrats and liberals? Why do they do that? When you read it, they interviewed far more Democrats than they did Republicans. Why do they do that? Why do they do that? And I guess there's a law that they have to say that because they would have preferred not having to say that.
Well, I'm joined now by J.Ann Selzer, whose firm, Selzer and Company, conducted the poll. And back with us is David Axelrod and John King. And first of all, how surprised were you at these numbers? What do you make of them?
Selzer just looks so trustworthy. If you told me white Iowan woman, I would go, ugh, but then you showed me her, I'd go, ah, you know?
And also, obviously, feel free to respond to what the former president said.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. We first saw the numbers on Tuesday morning. Monday night was the first night in the field. And I walked into the office and I'd seen overnight, I'd seen the unweighted data and it had Harris leading. And my assistant said, "Did you see the data?" And I said, "I'd like to see weighted data." So the weighting is how we take care of things that make it would make our poll unrepresentative. We align things with a known population, and we extract from a larger group the people who meet our definition of likely voters, and that is people who've already voted and people who say they will definitely vote.
Again, this is what I talk about building a model to interpret the data that you get.
So when former President Trump says we interviewed more Democrats, well, that's what came out of our data. We did nothing to make that happen. I'm a big believer of keeping my dirty fingers off the data. So we did it the way we did it when he won in our final poll twice in 2 election cycles. Very same method.
He said you're an enemy of his.
I want to believe it so badly. Guys, listen, okay? I'm going to stay a socialist. However, I might become a shitlib for a few weeks if like the Bliowa prophecy ends up being indicative and we get a sweep the likes of which literally no one predicted. I'm I just for a little bit. Just for a little bit, okay?
Clearly, that's not the case. You have had polls in the past which have shown, that Hillary Clinton wasn't going to do as well in Iowa as a lot of people thought.
You know the Chud Jack where you see him from behind and he's got a muscular back and he's got like votes cast for Harris, like 20 tallies, Black Lives Matter, like the trans flag and stuff. And it's like the Chud Jack and you see him from behind, he's like looming. Where it's going to be that energy for a bit.
You have been, delivered news which has upset Democrats and upset Republicans and people all over the map in the past.
Right, without favor, one
Oh, my
side or the
fucking
other.
God.
I think.
Yeah, that guy. That's the energy. What's the top reply to this video? Oh. Loud ass copyright music.
That the best news I can deliver, and this is true of my non-election related clients, the best news I can deliver is my best shot at what's true. Because then you know what you're working with and you can make adjustments as you need to. But I can't see that there's any advantage to me or my career in messing with the numbers to make it look a particular way. There's no upsides.
It's worth noting that Democratic voter enthusiasm is at 2008 levels. Man. Fucking Hillary Clinton, man. God. Can somebody find me that map of what the electoral college vote is going to look like if all the polls are as wrong as they are about Iowa, if we assume this poll is correct? Like, what if we extrapolate the results from this poll, what the map's going to look like?
I want to bring in John and David Axelrod because they all know you and respect you, and I know they want to ask you questions. John, I know you've been reading through the poll. What sticks out to you? And feel free to ask Ann whatever you'd like.
Yeah, quick piece of history first. This is the 2020 map. Let's just bring out Iowa. And you say, a lot of people out there probably saying, oh, come on, that can't be possible. Look at that big Trump win in 2020 and look at this big Trump win in 2016. But
I believe this map isn't going to happen, but if it did, the shit liberty might last a little while longer than a few weeks. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Blexis Blorda. Brothers, if we get this map, I think this is Blamerica. There's no reason to separate by state. We are united. Arms linked. God.
You have Mr. Axelrod at the table as well. It is possible. It is possible. It's been a while, but Iowa voted overwhelmingly for Obama in 2012 and 2008 as well. The people of Iowa follow the news, and there are a lot of independents in Iowa. Here's what I want to pop up for Ann, and as I bring it up right now, I just want to say, despite what the former president just said, I've known Ann for a long time, and I've known her work for a long time. She's one of the best in the business, Anderson, and she's absolutely right. The data is what the data is, and you report the data, and then you talk about it. So here's interesting, Ann, in your poll among female voters in Iowa. Overall, a 20-point gap, 56 to 36%, number one. And now I want to bring
Iowa
up,
when Dems choose a black candidate. Literally like the white guy in the Kenta cloth with the hat, you know? Absolutely.
You're always looking late in a campaign. Where are the independents going, right? If the Democrats are loyal to their candidate, the Republicans are loyal to theirs, where are the independents going? These are independent female voters in Iowa. Look at that. Wow. 57 to 29. My question for you, Ann, would be, why? The six-week abortion ban in Iowa took place a couple months ago. Trump has been pretty dark in his rhetoric in recent days, insulting the vice president quite a bit. Is it something she's saying, something he's saying, something within Iowa that's changing the climate, all of the above?
I'm going to go with all of the above because I can't single one thing out. I will note that our previous polls this year, in February and in June, Trump led with independents.
Right.
So what happened between June and September? Biden left the ticket. Kamala Harris joined it. There was a surge of enthusiasm. We saw it. There was a surge in the proportion of people we talked to who said they would definitely vote. That was our criterion in June. And now we have an additional criterion if you've already voted. And especially among older people, it's over 90% incidence.
Nancy was cooking, Vosh. We should feel shame. There is a timeline where, like, in retrospect, Nancy Pelosi's legacy is held alongside, like, some of the greatest political strategists in, like, Democratic history, purely on the basis of what she orchestrated here, not even counting for everything else. I'm sure she's really good at, like, insider trading too, but, like, for the most part, like, this on its own.
Of people that we talk to in that age group who say they're going to vote, and they tend to vote for Kamala Harris, and women in that age group specifically and strikingly.
And let me ask you something, and I don't want to geek out here because you sort of touched on it, but we hear a lot of pollsters, and Nate Cohn wrote about this in the New York Times this morning, talking about non-response bias, that to try and explain why polls have been so off in the past few cycles in capturing some of this infusion of Trump voter that they hadn't spoken with and hadn't been included in their sample. And so they've tried to find ways to weight their polls to account for that and cut that number down. You don't believe that is that's the way to go. Explain it.
Well, I can control what I can control. I can weight to known population parameters.
By the way, when you say
So
weight,
we talk-
I think a lot of people don't know what that means. What does that mean?
It will sound very anti-democratic. It's some people get a little bit more than one vote, and some people get a little bit less than one vote. So if we end up in our sample and we take a sample of all adults in the state of Iowa, and if we've got too many who are older or too many that are women, we adjust it to look like the census. So we're weighting within congressional districts because they're not all aged appropriately. Some of them have state universities and so on. But we want to adjust our data so it looks like a cross-section of the state of Iowa when it comes to age, sex, geography in particular, race, sometimes education, not so much anymore. And then from that bigger pool, over 1,000 people, we pull out the 808 who met one of our criteria to be a likely voter. They've already voted, or they say that they will definitely vote. And so from that, cross-section, proper cross-section of the state, if older people are more likely to say they're going to vote, they show up in more plentiful numbers in our likely voter sample.
I see.
It's just that easy. So what I say is I'm allowing my data to reveal to me this future electorate. And the people who are using the exit polls or the recalled vote, which I don't think of as very reliable at all, I call that polling backward. So they're
That's what, okay,
adjusting
yeah,
their
she's
data to fix
describing.
the last mistake. I've always allowed my data to show me, without fear or favor, what my best shot at what this future electorate is going
Yeah,
to
she's basically making the same claim that I've made here, that basically, like, that many pollsters are assuming what the results ought to be and then massaging the polling data they get and accounting for it to, like, work back to get a result that feels like it's right. And she's saying, like, well, no, I'm just taking the data and, you know, weighing it by population and delivering it.
look like.
Can I just second John's point? Which is, I've worked with you, Ann, over the years. You've polled races I was involved in, and you are a person of great integrity and skill. So when you say something, people listen.
All right. Ann Selzer.
Excuse me?
Integrity and skill. So when you say something, people listen.
All right. Ann Selzer, really great to have you on. Thank you so much.
Can't believe he'd do her like that. What is this? Veterans for Responsible Leadership. What is this? Destiny.
I want to talk about why the polls have been so off up until now, and it's extremely unlikely that the race between Harris and Trump is going to be as close as most models are predicting. Because the Fort Hayes poll from Kansas and the Selzer poll from Iowa are kind of confirming what a lot of us already suspected, and that is that Harris is actually doing a lot better than initially projected, and there might even be a blue blowout for Harris. The first thing is that a lot of American mainstream polls like Atlas Intel, Tip Insights, Hart Research, and the Emerson College, which are the ones getting cited most often by mainstream news outlets, are appearing to be engaging in a data-altering practice called herding. I can get more into how herding works in another video if you want, but the short version...
I just want it known that I did my big ramble about all of this, about the herding and the AI and everything, that I did it before consulting other sources, okay? I arrived at these positions independently with my big shiny head, and now everyone else is agreeing with me, okay? All right. This free thinker.
Version is that pollsters who heard their results are deliberately shifting any data points they see as outliers closer to what other similar surveys are showing, so that if they end up being wrong, they don't get singled out as an unreliable pollster and are seen as more in line with the crowd. But what happens when a lot of different surveys on the same subject start herding is that it forms a vicious cycle that causes those data points to grow tighter and tighter until you inevitably end up with a poll projection calling for a dead heat that actually isn't representative of what the unaltered data show. Another problem is that a lot of pollsters are still spooked by what happened in 2016 when pretty much every polling source...
Oh man. It's so fucked up that we have freedom of speech. I'm anti-freedom of speech. If you're one of the pollsters responsible for this, I genuinely think there should be criminal charges, and I'm not even kidding. At least civil liability. It's just fucked up that you can lie and ruin everything forever. Like, you could, like, nothing can matter, all information is dead, everything sucks forever, and all of it is because it's okay to lie and there are no consequences because no one can call you on the lie because you're being lied to. I'm so frustrated. There needs to be some law. I don't know how you would structure that law in a way that wouldn't be overtly dictatorial. Maybe just let me decide. The law is that I, Ian Koczynski, get to decide. I'll point at people. I'll point at New York Times Siena pollsters. Sorry, that one looks like bullshit. You're going to the volcano. Your ass is going straight to the caldera. You're being sacrificed to Quetzalcoatl, all right? I know Quetzalcoatl wasn't their sun god. I'm sorry, I don't remember the Aztec sun god. You're going to have to forgive me for that one.
Was calling an easy win for Hillary, but Trump ended up drastically overperforming on election night, proving pretty much every election prediction incorrect, save for people like Alan Lichtman and the Selzer poll. This means that a lot of polls are worried about the same thing happening again for Trump, so most surveys are overinflating.
Isn't Quetzalcoatl some RuneScape thing? Open the schools.
His poll projections to cover their bases, which is compounding the problem of herding and leading to even...
Quetzalcoatl was the god of, like, medicine in the fields and stuff. You know, so we send them to the feudal lands. Let all of the New York Times Siena pollsters, like, forever harvest wheat in a field bleached by a scorching sky as a giant winged serpent, like, flies over them and occasionally basks them in a wake of flame, you know? Is that not fitting? He was also associated with the Sun, to be fair. Well, they all were. It was a pantheon, right? Subject the pollsters to the, the wrath of Quetzalcoatl, okay? If their harvests are insubstantial. That's all I want.
Further artificial inflation of Trump's chances in the election, and is ignoring the fact that
Huitzilopochtli was the Aztec sun god. Gotcha. Now he won't kill me.
the 2024 election is materially different in a lot of important ways from the 2016 election. This also isn't accounting for groups like Patriot Polling, which are owned by conservative interests and deliberately inflate Trump's numbers so that if he loses, it lends more credence to the false idea that Harris stole the election from him. And finally, we have the issue of Nate Silver, who is often cited as a pollster when he is in fact only aggregating other people's polls and creating averages based on those polls across the board, regardless of whether or not the source is...
Genuine question: if Harris is legitimately leading and pollsters are skewing it against her, isn't this beneficial for her since blowing out polling could cause overconfidence? No, because that's exactly what they want. They want all the polling to make it look dead even, and then for Kamala to overperform everywhere, and then Republicans are like, see? How is she overperforming every poll? There's no way, it's impossible. How is Kamala Harris doing so well? It must be cheating. That's the goal. Like, it seems like this entire thing from the very beginning was orchestrated with the intention of facilitating the steal. That wasn't the case back in 2020. The propaganda lead up was like starting from, you know, COVID and a few months back, but like the polling wasn't being conducted in a fashion to facilitate that. The pollsters, I think, were organically wrong. Like they were incorrect in a much more organic way. In this case, I am struggling to find an explanation for this level of cohesion that doesn't come down to the pollsters are complicit and should be sent to the fields to be basked in the wake of flame of Quetzalcoatl as he flies by displeased with their crop yields. You know? Well, that's how it is, Phone Night. That's how it be. Fucked up that if you Google literally anything fantasy related, you just get AI art now. Like, seriously, Google Quetzalcoatl, you get like a few historical images and then a bunch of shitty AI art prompts. It's Quetzalcoatl. It's not like it's a little known creature, you know? Fucked up. I'm going to go with this one. This one's real, okay? This is where we're sending the New York Times Siena pollsters, okay? We're going to dust off like South Mexican temple somewhere in a jungle that people don't go to because the spiders there are really big. POV, you are a former New York Times Siena pollster, and you have only produced 18 bushels of wheat this season. I'm sorry. I just really hate them. I'm just...
is bias. Nate Silver is essentially the Rotten Tomatoes of polling in that his numbers and projections are largely arbitrary aggregations and averages of polls at large that mislead the general public into assuming that all poll sources are equally trustworthy when they are not. Even worse, his models often include betting surveys and gambling odds, which are directed at predicting odds with the highest potential risk to reward ratios, not the most likely results. All of this has led to the sustained illusion of a dead heat between Trump and Harris, while the most reliable sources have been calling a Harris-favored race for a while, such as Alan Lichtman and Ipsos poll. The main reason...
Okay. Most reliable sources, Lichtman. Let's not... Uh-oh. We might be doing blue QAnon stuff here. I agree with all the reasoning. I don't like Lichtman.
And you're seeing sources like CNN and CBS suddenly changing their poll predictions to Harris blowouts as of last night at the last minute is because these sources didn't want to be the first ones to post Harris leading projections and were waiting for more reliable sources like the Iowa Seltzer poll to call it first so they could...
Does Lichtman get the Quetzalcoatl? Depends on whether or not he's right, but I don't think Lichtman is like complicit in poll herding. I just think he's kind of a crank. However, if this all works out as he predicted, let him turn the keys atop the temple, okay? Lichtman will be the priest who supervises the altar as they bring the bushels of wheat in. You don't know how to turn the keys, Silver! That was so fucking good. I can't believe he was getting lambasted for that, man. You don't understand the keys. You wouldn't know how to turn the keys even if they were right in front of you. I gotta respect him for that. I might end up I might end up unironically becoming an ironic Lichtman guy, you know? I might I don't know. The more we exist in an environment where it's impossible to make predictions because all the data is completely fucked, the more you should make decisions based entirely on vibes. And that might be the way things are going.
Claim crowd mentality in case of a miss on this year's prediction. Long and short of it, no one wants to be the first to get it wrong. They want to claim, oh, well, they misled us. And overall, the rapid adjustments that we are seeing in mainstream polls in the past 72 hours is a result of...
He could be Secretary of Defense for all I care as long as she wins. Is the keys, the two keys you turn to the right at the same time to launch the ICBMs. He's...
of using fallacy-riddled models and projections for a good chunk of this year, and those models finally falling apart in the face of more historically reliable polls
to launch
and
the
more
truth
accurate
nuke
data coming through instead of deliberately herded results. And none of this is to say that you should skip voting. Go vote anyway. Don't get complacent.
Got to get 413 electoral votes for Kamala Harris. Alan Lichtman in his command center cooking a feverish key post. He's turning all the fucking missile silo doors are slowly opening, alarms flashing as the Lichtman stands running around disengaging, pulling the fuel pumps out from the truth nuke on the bed of launch. Have you seen the new Onion video? Yeah, it's actually maybe the funniest thing in the world. I'm just really worried about copyright. You don't think the Onion couldn't possibly be dicks about content ID, right? There's no way, right? We're all pro Onion here.
New polling out this week shows a tight race in a handful of hotly contested swing states. Joining me now to break down the numbers is ONN's Jason Copeland at the Big Map.
Thanks, Dwight.
We're so
seeing
fucking
some
back,
really
dude.
interesting trends in a lot of key battleground states. Let's start with Pennsylvania with its coveted 19 electoral votes. And I want to focus for a moment on Erie County up here. This is a crucial swing county. It goes Trump in 2016, narrowly back to Biden in 2020. Now, I want to go in even further than that. This right here, this is Mill Creek Township, District 2. Polls are showing momentum toward Harris in areas like this. But to really understand what's going on, let's go even closer. Zoom in a little bit more. Right here, right here. This is 114 Hilltop Lane. Now, I want to take us inside the bedroom here. Bear with me. There we go. So this is Nick Camden, 37-year-old registered independent. He goes Hillary in 2016, Trump in 2020. Which way is he going to go in 2024? Really hard to say at this point. It's pretty early, but we know it's going to be close.
And Jason, what are you seeing inside this person that might indicate movement one way or another?
So this is just a very ordinary Rust Belt body, small town values, predominantly white. It's got the lungs, it's got the vascular system, the heart, but I actually want to show you what's in here. This is the neocortex and the amygdala. These are areas of the brain responsible for regulating emotion and memory. So let's play out a couple of scenarios here. If, for example, this man remembers his grandmother and the time she took him to an Al Gore rally in 1999, feels good about that, that's a win for the Democrats. On the other hand, take a look at this. This is the area of the brain that's associated associated with social interaction and groups, and we've seen it light up when Nick goes out for beers with his Trump-supporting coworkers. So we're looking at really a thin margin here. I want to show you something, actually. Let's come back out. Let's go past the rib cage, past the lungs, past the heart, past the tumor. Healthcare going to be a really big issue in this election, obviously. Past the DNA to what we're calling the source, the origin of life, existence itself, where all of humanity's answers can be found.
And can we zoom in further than that?
No.
Why not?
Because I'm scared. But what we can do is we can actually zoom out here, out of the DNA, out of Nick Camden, out of Erie, Pennsylvania, out of the solar system to the edges of our cosmos, where we see ultimately how meaningless this whole race really is and how insignificant all of our tiny little lives really are.
That is a big map. Thank you, Jason. Coming up next, the Trump campaign is in full-on damage control after footage leaked of the candidate being extremely rude.
In perilous times of great uncertainty, across every corner of a...
We are so fucking back, man. We're genuine. Also, that felt like a little microcosm of an entire one of my streams. Genuinely, I felt like I was taken on a journey from your perspective into like the... Let's talk about politics 15 minutes in. It all comes down... The human beings are animals. They have no consistent thoughts or feelings. Consciousness is non-continuous. You're not the same person when you wake up as you are when you fall asleep. Nothing matters. Logic doesn't matter. Rhetoric doesn't matter. It's all just neural signals. Me, 2 hours after that. Life's still pretty good, though. It's all right. It's okay. I think people are all right, like, on average. Yeah, me 1 hour later. Yeah, I don't think, like, I would be okay with a quarter zip, but only if it was in, like, a terry cloth, like, in a rugby kind of athletic way. I don't like it in a merino wool, because I think, you know, wool sweaters should have texture. Yeah, then me 1 hour later, thank you for the additional 5 gifted tier 1 subs, Sake. That is true. That probably would have been a great video if I'd looked at it. Okay, guys, we're 38 minutes over. That's it. That's a whole Voss stream right there. Ah, fuck. I needed that. God. The Onion's back. We're so back. ONN doesn't miss. Their old shit is gold. Isn't it crazy how, not to say that it wasn't the case before, but it really is great how The Onion got funnier and funnier the more actively partisan they became towards the left. Like, The Onion has always been left-leaning, and it has always been funny, but it feels like like, at some point, like, 2 or 3 years ago, they were like, let's, like, just commit to the line here, and they found their voice again, and they just got, like, funnier, you know? Man. I don't even hear about the B anymore. Did they fall up? Babylon B? Babylon B, I genuinely, like, the only effect Babylon B has had on culture is, like, tweets. That's it. Like, they get their tweets, and it gets engagement from the same people over and over. The Onion has, like, The Onion has had an impact. Yeah, it seems like right now all Babylon B does is defend itself against groypers, so... Shout out to Trump for agreeing to that super early debate. Imagine if Biden was still a candidate. God almighty. I don't want to imagine that. That's rough. It'd be over. Can you imagine? I can't believe Nancy Pelosi, like, handed us a chance. After everything we've said about her, every mean thing we've said about Nancy Pelosi, she still reaches out. She still has a heart. Thank you, Comrade Pelosi. She can have a little inside trading as a treat. Yeah. Georgia top court won't extend ballot deadline and win for Trump. The top court in the battleground state of Georgia ruled on Monday that Cobb County cannot extend the deadline for counting about 3,000 absentee ballots that were sent out shortly before Election Day. Siding with the RNC, the Georgia Supreme Court overturned a judge's ruling extending the deadline until Friday in Cobb County, that only absentee ballots that arrive by 7 p.m. ET on Tuesday can be counted. Civil rights groups had sued last week, seeking to extend the deadline, arguing that the county violated state law by failing to promptly send out about 3,000 absentee ballots. County officials said they were overwhelmed by a surge in requests. That's pretty fucking dumb. So 3,000 ballots are being tossed out because they were received late, because they were delivered late, because Cobb County was overwhelmed by a surge in requests? That's pretty dumb. It's pretty dumb. The ruling from the court might be correct, though. This might be like... It might be like a kind of clashing fuck-up where it was absolutely wrong for them to delay sending out the ballots, but they also, like, rules as written, cannot accept them after Election Day. Like, logically dumb, legally valid, yeah. I'm not saying it's good or justifiable, because I think that the spirit of the law matters more than the rule of law in a lot of cases, but, yeah, whatever. 3,000 absentee ballots in Cobb County probably aren't going to make the... Well, maybe. Cobb County 2020 election. What were those margins again? Yeah, you know. Yeah, they're probably Biden voters. .2020 margin in Georgia was 10K, wasn't it? Yeah, it was pretty close. You mean Harris? They were Biden voters back in... Yeah, okay, yes. Well, we'll see how it goes. Since we're on the eve of the election, and the real work begins tomorrow. You know, when I start stream, we're going to be doing nonstop streams for a while, for however long it takes. I kind of want to get a run on how the media is summing things up.
Welcome back. It is Election Eve, and I am with John King at the Magic Wall. As Kamala Harris and Donald Trump will...
What are we going to do tomorrow? Just watch the polls? You are going to see an oscillation of We Are So Back versus It Is So Jover that you have never seen before. If any people in chat have bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, or any other mood-affective disorder that might make this viewing experience intolerable to them, I strongly suggest that you keep a handy supply of lithium, so anytime the mood rapidly shifts, you can, like, kind of chemically cushion the blow to your prefrontal cortex. Yeah, you want a bottle of lithium and a bottle of cyanide just in case.
Make their final pitch to voters. Don, I want to start with a flashback. 2016, the first time Donald Trump was on any ballot.
I went back and watched Sam Seder's coverage of the 2016 election, and watching it sink in that Trump had won was so brutal. Yep. The only election that you guys have been here with me was when Joe Biden won. And we got Blorgia, and that was a good-ass time, okay? But we've never been around, as a collective, as a community, we haven't experienced the other side. We haven't seen, slowly, a loss, which would be devastating, of course. Yeah, and the landslide in 2022, that was also very good, but nothing tops the presidential. Whatever happens, I'll be here with you.
It was the day before. Here's what happened.
For 98 days, she has led the race. That's why a lot of people, the technical people, the people who do this for a living, say it's not a Brexit situation. But that's what Donald Trump is counting on. If you're behind in the polls, you can defy them with a great operation. Donald Trump in many of these places is just counting on it being this huge, come out of the woodwork.
As somebody who's watched him we all have, but really studied his candidacy over the past year and a half, the ups and downs, that he's fallen off the discipline wagon.
Turns out he's once again fallen off the discipline wagon, but will it matter?
Oh, so here's the 2016 flashback. This is where we were on this day in 2016, where our projections had Hillary Clinton at 268, knocking on the door of 270 electoral votes in the White House. But look at this map. We had the blue wall leaning blue on that day, right? She lost all 3 of those to Donald Trump, which is why everybody at home, be prepared for anything to happen tomorrow, in the sense that you can be leading by a little bit. But we knew there was Trump movement at the end. The question was, she had led the race for so long. Was it enough to overcome? Well, it turned out on Election Day, it was enough to overcome. So where are we now? Right? We're in a much less clear situation, right? Let me just quickly do this. In 2020, we already...
Insane how truly bad her campaign was. Didn't she, like, give up on campaigning at the last... Like, wasn't she with like, wealthy donors towards the end of the election? Like, she stopped, just flat out wasn't campaigning in swing states? She didn't even campaign in Wisconsin? Maybe she just assumed... Maybe she was, like, correct in her belief that she wouldn't be able to hide her contempt for Rust Belt voters. Like, if she went up on stage and had to see them in the stand, she would go, like... Or something like that. And it would actually be worse.
They had Joe Biden over the top. It was pretty clear from the data that Joe Biden was going to win the 2020 election the day before the election. We still had to wait for the count because of the pandemic complexities of the election, but it was pretty clear. And then again, you had to deal with the question, is Donald Trump surprising us again in 2020? And he did not. So here's where we are now. So the vice president, it's a modest lead, but she's had a consistent lead here. Modest lead, but a consistent lead here. Right, that would get her there. This is why Pennsylvania is so important. This is why both candidates are spending so much time and have spent so much.
And she's going to be there.
If I never have to hear anything about Pennsylvania again for the rest of my entire life, I will have still heard far too much about Pennsylvania. I'm so sorry. I don't even hear anything about Pennsylvania besides the fucking election. I hear plenty of stuff about Michigan besides the election. What do you even do over there? It's a big state. Cheesesteak, I guess. Yeah, what are you even doing?
The entire day.
Right,
today.
right. And she's going to the right places in terms of getting votes and stuff. Because, look, if she holds these...
Oh, God. Speaking of Pennsylvania... Man. In Pennsylvania, on election eve... Is this election eve or is this the day before? I think this is election eve. I think this is from today. Man.
Doesn't mean she will, but she's had a modest, consistent lead in both of those states. If she holds these, that's enough, as long as she picks up Nebraska's second congressional...
Oh, video of it? We have a video of it?
To be here again with all of you patriotic, God-fearing American men and women in support of our president, Donald J. Trump.
Oh my God, they did! They curtained off the top! They've draped black curtains, massive black curtains, to hide the entire top half of the arena. You can see the seating right here. That may have been for acoustics. Maybe, but still, it's a political rally. They chose to have those draped down. Definitely not for acoustics. Maybe they're there for acoustics, like, in some contexts, but they definitely did not deploy the black curtains to improve the acoustics, you know?
And what an honor it is to address you here in the Steel City today before we make the most consequential...
And for comparison, here's the line for Harris in Philly tonight. Oh my God. All the way down Franklin Parkway to Logan Square. You know what would be like the worst outcome in this election for me? What if every swing state does end up getting like razor sharp 50-50? What do I even do with my career after that? At that point, it's like, what is any... There's no predictive power to anything. There's no indicators. Nothing matters. That's when we pivot to video game streaming. I hope not. At that point, you have to worship the pollsters, because even if you don't understand how it's working, like, that's what you get, you know? Oh yeah, I saw this one. This one is genuinely incredible. Zoom in on every single person in the background. Look at every person in the background. Video, shades, on phone, indeterminate, looking down at phone, looking away, looking down at phone, looking down at phone, looking away, bored, looking down at... Incredible. They're all right next to Trump, too. They're, like, right there.
District where all the polling, so she's running strong. That's her easiest path. No
One
path
second.
is easy.
Enjoy CNN
But
slot
that's
for
the
30
easiest
seconds.
path.
I'm gonna
If
piss.
she doesn't win this, let's say Donald Trump wins that. How does Harris get there? Well, you have to win at least 2 more. And even these 2 wouldn't be enough. Let's say she did well out here. Those 2 aren't enough because they're not big enough in terms of how many electoral votes they have. That's why Pennsylvania is so prominent here. If you're Donald Trump, you think if you win Pennsylvania that you're going to do this again, right? That you're going to defy the polling again, and you're going to do this.
Because almost always, except for I think it was 88 that they didn't vote together.
They voted together since 1992.
Yeah.
They have voted, the 3 of them have voted together since 1992, including 2016 when they did this. In every other election, they have voted blue, which is why, again, will we know the winner here tomorrow night? Maybe not, but we might know the winners here. And so you see if they're sticking together or anything like that. But if you watch this play out, even if Donald Trump wins the blue wall, he still has to win somewhere else. Right? But if you're winning the 3 of these, it's a pretty safe bet you're going to win at least 1 or 2 of those. We live in a pretty nationalized election climate. So that's why this one is so key, because it's 19. Right? This is 16. That's 16. You think, well, that's only 3. But when you're trying to get to 270, if we have a, he wins 1, she wins 1, then you just get into this wild card race. I mean, it lets us, if Donald Trump were to win the whole blue wall, right? This is what's fascinating to me. Let's just, these are the whiter, older states, right? Demographically, they should favor him. These have been more Republican states of late. But let's say Donald Trump won all that. Can the vice president still win? Well, yes, but she would have to pull off a Sun Belt sweep. You have to come across and just do the entire, come on for me there. She would have to do all the Sun Belt states, right? It would be a very different map, a map like we've never seen before. But 2020 was a map with Arizona and Georgia flipping like we've never seen before, right. Which is why,
Why is it showing Oregon as a possible flip?
These are the 3 that most likely are going to decide who goes to the dance, who gets 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Those are the 3 that are likely to decide it. But again, we live in this crazy year where there's many different paths. There's many different ways to get there. And again, we could have a blow by blow, state by state, or somebody could sweep them like Biden did in 2020.
We're just going to have to let the voters vote.
Math.
We will tell you what happens. It is very possible that Donald Trump could just win this outright, legit. But it's not going to happen that they're going to be done counting for lots of reasons, primarily the laws of these key states, MJ.
I think that if the polls are as unrepresentative as we think they are, we're going to know the results of the election by the end of the 5th, by the end of tomorrow. Because if the polls are as unrepresentative, like, imagine if we get the, like, Michigan or North Carolina count, like all the early votes, they're listed, and then it's like 10 points ahead of what anyone expected. It's like, okay, well, then that's it then. If there's going to be a sweep, we will find out immediately. If the sweep is real, we will know. We'll know early. What do you think about Emma Vigeland's predicted electoral college map? It's optimistic. I have a lot of respect for people with the cojones to actually make the predictions, because I still feel like we live in a chaotic universe where entropic forces seek to rob meaning from all the things that we seek to understand. You know, I don't know. Maybe California goes red. I don't know anything. This is very optimistic. I love the Bliowa. I love the Bliowa inclusion. But you know what? If you're including Bliowa, just fucking throw Texas in there, man. You know, that's what I'm saying. If you're throwing Bliowa in there, then put Texas in play. Can you imagine if we got Blowhio? Blowhio is, I think, like, if we believe that there is a potential blowout, I think Blowhio is just as likely as, you know, Bliowa. Like, if we see a cataclysmic shift in Iowa, then we might as well assume it's going to happen in Ohio as well. I don't think it's going to happen, but Vance might rope in that case. JD's on the ticket. Ohio is impossible. I don't think Ohioans like JD Vance that much. I don't think that he's a hometown darling, you know? I feel like a Kamala sweep is possible, a Trump sweep is not. Okay, that is one thing I will put my feet down on and make a prediction on. Yeah, a Trump sweep is completely out of the question. I don't think there is any possibility that Trump wins decisively. I think it's possible that he wins, like in this awful, miserable, edged, like nail-biting, tiny, like, you know, marginal, like, I think it's possible for him to win narrowly and painfully, which in a way would be like more painful than if it just happened right away. But he can't get the sweep. Kamala can get the sweep. Maybe.
North Carolina and Arizona, new laws may delay reporting of early votes. Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, mail-in ballots are not processed until Election Day. Nevada, ballots postmarked on Election Day are accepted even if they arrive by November 9th.
Yeah, and all of that is why we have been doing so much work to try to just prepare our readers and our viewers on what kinds of scenarios we might expect, and just to let it sink into people's heads, the slowness, the potential slowness that we might see in the counting and certain states being called, that all of that is within the realm of possibility. And that has translated for the Harris campaign on actually predicting over and over again in all of their public statements, we fully expect that Donald Trump is
It's fucked up how it's illegal to make women's pantsuit blazers out of an interesting material, so they all get made out of the same, like, homogenate wool polyester blend that just looks like plastic, you know? You gotta cut that shit from an interesting cloth.
Going to either declare victory or say that something has gone awry, something sinister is at play, so that they can almost numb people to that possibility, so that when he does it, there aren't people that are saying, oh my gosh, is this a thing that's happening that we should be suspicious of? They want people to have heard that over and over
Looks
again.
like a fondant
Everyone
coat.
should take
That's a
a
good
deep
way
breath.
of putting it.
It's been a long campaign, but it is over almost soon. But one thing that I'm sort of struck by this is we talked to voters. January 6th, an election, the election on denialism is part of this campaign now. It was not the last campaign. That was after 2020. So this is...
Oh, this is actually useful. When the Harris campaign expects to see results in key states, per email I just got. I believe it. I don't care. Sure. I saw this chart in a dream. Tuesday on the 5th, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. ET. Okay. Most results from Georgia and North Carolina, but if these races are close, they may not be called. So this for me is the cut. I actually think Georgia and North Carolina are the cut, because if we get a wave, we will see a decisive win for Georgia and for North Carolina, and it'll be in early, and there is no universe where Georgia and North Carolina do well, like really well, but then everything else is kind of middling. You know, like it's too indicative. They got they got so many early votes. We're going to see millions of votes, like, just available to us. You know what's really fucked up? Right now, 100% in Georgia and North Carolina, there are ballot counters. There are people working in who process the early ballots. There are some people, not many, but some people who know what the early vote distribution is. Probably just a handful of them. They know. Somebody has to know. They know. And they might, like, they're sitting on, like, why won't you tell me? If I, God. Will you start streaming at like 5 p.m.? No? I'm going to start streaming probably at like noon my time. I need to get everything. Look, okay, I'm going to be subsisting off of like DoorDash and coffee for a bit. But like, I'll be straight for, I'm here with you. Wow, and you tell us not to DoorDash? Yeah. Why don't you make more rice and beans? You want to be a bitch about it? You want to be a little bitch about it? I have the materials. You want me to just pre-make like a giant thing of rice and beans so I can just make myself like, I can meal prep like 8 delicious burritos and just have my roommates heat them up when I need them? Fuck, I could save like $200 doing that. That might actually be... It's like half a sake tanuki payout for one stream, you know? It's like half a... BGL, no. I'll do it. I don't know what I'm going to do about the coffee, though, because for tomorrow, I am not having Keurig cup coffee. That is not a Keurig cup coffee kind of day. I live in Seattle, the coffee capital of America. I want my preferred local coffee place to bring me a bucket. I want like a latte chamber. A growler of coffee? Fuck, that would go so hard. You know, I have a thermos. I don't use it often because I rarely bring hot drinks with me, but Demon Mama got it for me a while back as a gift, and it's actually like super good, like the times I've used it. So I do have... the ability. Pot of rice and beans plus a bucket of coffee. That might just be it. Where's your Stanley Cup? Can I be real? Stanley Cups are really ugly. I understand they fit in really well with a very specific kind of like Lululemon, I pretend to do yoga, but I don't, like suburban, I drive in my SUV everywhere kind of aesthetic, but like, I think they're really ugly and stupid. Like, let me roll it back. They're fine. There's nothing about them that's any worse than any other like brand big cup, but man, the like performative consumerism around it sometimes is weird. And I'm not being sexist. There are plenty of like this isn't a woman thing, okay? I make fun of people who get like guys shampoo for people who fuck. Like, it's not just a woman thing, but like the Stanley Cup is definitely a gendered cup, even though it's called Stanley. I don't know. Dude wipes, yeah. I don't know why I'm talking about this. Anyway, yeah, we by the so here's what we're going to have by the end of Tuesday, by the end of tomorrow, okay? Most results from Georgia, North Carolina, and potentially Michigan, partial from Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Arizona, initial from Nevada. But I think by that point, we will already know what the results of the election are going to be. My perspective is, if the results of this election are hinging on Arizona and Nevada and Wisconsin, I think that we're already in a bad spot. I think what we want is an opening line from North Carolina and Georgia that gets us rock fucking hard, and everything after that is like a cherry on top, you know? Obviously, Pennsylvania is incredibly important, but I think that we'll know how Pennsylvania is going based on how North Carolina and Georgia go. I'm so scared. Let's go. Hey, listen, we're all in this together, okay? Isn't Georgia going to take the longest to call? Well, it takes longer to call depending on how close it is. Why are we believing a random tweet? It came to me in a dream. Also, like, this information is just correct on its own. It's not like private information. We know what the rules are in each state for counting ballots.
Is driving some voters to the polls. I met a woman in Wisconsin last week who said she is voting in this election. Her main issue is January 6th. So all of this, every time that the former president says it, he is sort of driving some people potentially. But let's all take a deep breath because it may not take all week, but it may.
I talked to Tim Scott, who's a supporter. He came on State of the Union as a surrogate for Donald Trump, asked him about the lies that Donald Trump has been telling. Let's watch that.
I would never tell any candidate on the ballot to talk about what happens if they lose. Obviously, you're going to lean into the victory, especially
I appreciate
when the
that,
latest
Senator.
polls...
Okay, fuck you. I hate you. Go away. Sorry. I want to get the roundabout. What's the final call on NBC? Okay, that's CNN.
36 hours from now, the race for the White House that began 2 years ago, and yes, it really has been that long, it'll finally be in the hands of you, of voters, or at least the ones waiting until Tuesday to cast their ballots. But before that, one last campaign sprint with Vice President Kamala Harris stopping by SNL last night. You see her there. Then today, hitting multiple stops across Michigan. Former President Trump had his first rally at 10 this morning, starting in Pennsylvania, then racing through Michigan and now Georgia. His closing message overshadowed by his disturbing reference to violence against the press covering him. You also have much of the political world trying to figure out what to make of these new numbers from one of the country's top pollsters showing Vice President Harris may be doing better than the conventional wisdom anticipates in Iowa, a state that hadn't really been on anyone's battleground bingo card. Our teams are there, and with both campaigns...
Selzer is going to be entered into, like, policy wonk political royalty if things go down the way that they might. You know, she's going to be hailed like a fucking like Oracle of Delphi. They're going to be feeding her grapes on a lounge chair, asking her what she thinks the weather is going to be like tomorrow. Like it's going to be fucking insane.
On the road.
They're going to be sacrificing
goats. We'll get to our correspondents
in
a minute, but now let's start with our guy at the big board here. We meet again, Steve Kornacki.
Allie, this is it.
I know. Our last NBC News national poll, and the headline is super consistent. This race is still extremely competitive.
Exactly. I mean, it's fitting because certainly no one really knows what to make of everything that's been happening.
Yeah.
So we land on a 49-49 Harris-Trump tie in our final NBC News national poll. And take a look a little bit underneath this here. How about the issues that are driving this campaign? And again, this is a consistent story. Where does Harris do best? A 20-point advantage over Trump on who do you trust more, who would do a better job when it comes to abortion. Trump, again, it's inflation, it's the cost of living.
It's crazy how inconsistent even this is. Look at this. Harris wins on looking out for the middle class, but Trump wins on inflation, cost of living. Those are like the same thing. Like those are at the very least heavily overlapping concepts.
Living, that's his best edge here. He does well on the border, too. But we've seen that throughout the campaign, and that's where it lands at the end.
Again, consistency over the last few months here. You know this. I know you know this. Races are not one.
He's wearing trainers that he just run in from the field. Did you know that most men don't know there's a difference between, like, trainers or regular sneakers? Like, most guys will just go outside in fucking running shoes. They'll wear chinos with running shoes. This guy's wearing trainers with a tie. You guys know leather shoes break in and are eventually super, super comfortable, right? running shoes are better for your feet. No, they're not. That's a common misconception. They're better for running. They're made on foam that's meant to support you on a run. But if you're standing around all day, you don't want to be wearing... if for evidence of this claim... Hello, Alexander. Nice to see you. For evidence of this claim, look at the kinds of shoes veterinarians and doctors wear. There's like a specific kind of like pediatric, like it's like a croc or something. Okay, you know Dutch clogs, the ones that are carved out of wood? Did you know those are incredibly comfortable to walk in if they've been made properly? You just don't know that because you've never worn them that were carved for your feet. Yeah, but they're tailored like things used to be.
Won or lost nationally, they are won or lost in the battleground states. And there's some new numbers here that may contain potentially some surprises.
Final set of battleground polls, all of them here from the New York Times, Siena College, one of the best regarded pollsters out there. And look, they do show Harris with an advantage here. It's very slight, but in Wisconsin, North Carolina,
that's interesting.
Very significant, right? Because that's the only battleground Trump actually carried in 2020. Harris trying to play offense there. Trump, Michigan, Arizona, so much attention on Michigan, given all the Gaza war controversies. And then right there, Pennsylvania, the biggest of all the swing states, dead even.
I have to talk about a state that's not on this list that a lot of people are talking about, and that is Iowa. We'll have Maura Barrett there with more in just a second. But this shock poll coming from a very well-respected pollster. She's considered.
Can I tell you something? I think the fact that they are giving any credence to the Selzer Iowa poll, even though we have all of this poll herding where everything is 50-50 all the time, the fact that they're giving so much credence to this one poll makes me think that a lot of these guys know that there's been herding and they're waiting for the excuse. They're waiting for like the one person to break ahead of the pack so they can give it coverage first. So they can be like, oh, wow, what a surprise. Rather than the narrative being like, nobody saw this coming. Yeah, they're waiting for someone with the courage to break out ahead. These two aren't pollsters, so I'm not necessarily blaming them, but I just wonder if in the back end of things, some of them aren't like, yeah, this is kind of bullshit, and they feel like there's something indicative in the Selzer poll.
Considered the gold standard.
And that's it. She has picked up on last-minute trends before that no one else has seen. In fact, she saw that 4 years ago with Trump doing surprisingly well. And today, Ann Selzer, who does the Des Moines Register poll, out with one showing Harris 3 points ahead of Trump in a state Trump won both times by almost 10 points.
This was not on the battleground list.
Yeah, Nate Silver put out an article on the Silver Bulletin. There's more herding in swing state polls than at a sheep farm in the Scottish Highlands. Unfortunately, this only means so much because Nate Silver is deriving a lot of his analysis and his predictions off of the herded data. Like, Nate Silver is also, like, his 530... Like, what's the current 538 call? They even said they adjusted their... Who's favored to win the 2024 presidential election? 52-48. Oh, fuck, you're right. I'm sorry. I keep forgetting. I associate him so much with 538. But he's released his own polling, or he's released his own prediction, and his prediction also has it pretty close. Like, if you're saying there's herding, wouldn't the implication be that you think the outcome is different from what the herding suggests? To be fair, Nate Silver is a slave to the herded polls since he is an aggregator, not a pollster. That's true. That is true. That's true. Maybe this is me unironically being unfair to Nate Silver. He can't do anything about the poll herding. He doesn't conduct polling. He just interprets it. So maybe all he can really do is look at the data he's given, say, wow, this is herded to shit, and then run it through anyway, because he doesn't have the ability to, like... Yeah. He does come across as arrogant fuck. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the Nate Silver prediction still has the brown note. 538 is also being affected by the poll herding. 538 is being the most affected by the poll herding. Brown note. Slight divergence from Trump, but mostly a brown note. Oh, this is Florida, so we don't really care. Georgia, brown note. Michigan, brown note. Nevada, perfect brown note. North Carolina, brown note. Pennsylvania, brown note. Wisconsin, brown note. Tiny divergence at the end. Nice.
It may not be this time around, but it could pick up on some early trends.
And also it raises the possibility, are there other states out there like this?
Steve Kornacki, great to see you. We'll talk again, I know, in the days to come. Appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. MSNBC. What is MSNBC's current coverage? What's their summary? What's their roundup? Actually, hold on. I want to, because MSNBC is the most lib of the shit libs. I want to see their coverage of the Seltzer poll.
Joining us now is Frank Luntz, political strategist and longtime Republican pollster. Frank, thanks for being with us. Ann Seltzer, the pollster, was just on Morning Joe to talk about that Iowa poll. Take a listen to some of what she had to say.
No one, not including me, would have thought that Iowa could go for Kamala Harris. A lot of other polls, and I'll count Emerson among them, are including in the way that they manipulate the data after it comes in, things that have happened in the past. I don't make any assumptions like that. So it's, in my way of thinking, it's a cleaner way to forecast a future electorate.
Frank, what's your takeaway from that poll? And, you know, Mara was talking about the issue of that abortion ban over the summer. What do you take out of that poll?
It's both meaningful and measurable. It's a shock to the system. And in fact, I believe it's actually going to have an impact on the Iowa vote. When suddenly, because it was inconceivable 72 hours ago, that Democrats could win Iowa. This is the first time they've ever seen a statewide poll that will potentially change the outcome. It's giving people who would not have voted a reason to participate. I don't believe it's necessarily accurate. I don't like the idea of challenging other pollsters. They all have their own methodology. But if the poll is correct, then we're in the process of seeing numerous.
How is it going to have an impact 2 days before the vote? America, on average, does not have very high voter turnout. And a lot of that is because people feel very disenfranchised. They feel very alienated. If you were a Democrat living in Alabama, would you go out and vote? I mean, you watch me, so you're more involved in politics than most people. But if you were the average Democrat in Alabama, I can understand you being a little bit peevish about going out. You could be doing anything else with your time that day. I still think you should. But let's not posture here. Let's not play. Yeah, obviously, if people think that it's because of the Electoral College. Literally, it's just the Electoral College. If it was popular vote, then it wouldn't matter at all. If it was then everyone would go out and vote, understanding that their vote counts literally the same amount, no matter where they are. But because the EC is turnout usually higher in swing states? I think by like an amount, but not by that much. I think by like 10 points, maybe? No. Anyway, this guy, hold on. This guy was also on Fox News. What's the Fox News coverage for this?
The dueling approval ratings. This is sort of an albatross for Harris.
Hey, we just saw this.
Here, her administration that she's a part of, Joe Biden's approval rating sits at just 41%. And then there's this twist, Donald Trump, retrospectively, do you now approve of how he did as president? In our poll, 48%, almost half, give him that approval rating.
That, of course, MSNBC's election guru thinks that the approval rating could be the biggest factor in the race. Let's bring in our own elections expert, pollster and political analyst Frank Luntz. Frank, great to have you on the show. A couple of days. We are down to the wire. The Des Moines Register has Harris up by +3. It shook the world today. Frank, I mean, this poll, 47-44, this one was like, what? I mean, nobody even talked about Iowa for months, and now all of a sudden it's the big headline. What do you think of that poll?
Well, let me remind viewers that back in 2020, with 7 or 8 days to go, there were a whole series of surveys, state surveys that were done, and some of them were done by reputable pollsters, which this Iowa poll was done, that had Joe Biden with a 12 or 15. One of them even had him with an 18-point lead in states that Biden barely won. So I need, and I hope that everyone is a little calm. I know it's hard to be that calm right before the election, an election that really matters. But I think there's way too much focus on the surveys. I don't believe the Iowa results. I will be shocked. If it is true, it means that every other survey is wrong across the country.
I notice this guy is taking a slightly different tone when speaking with MSNBC versus speaking with Fox, you know? With MSNBC, he was like, that doesn't mean I necessarily believe that these results are accurate. And over here, he's like, I'd be shocked if this was real.
It's an outlier, and we should be focused on what's happening overall across each of these states.
I don't think he's being a snake. It's just he's kind of reading the room, you know?
And it really is a dead heat. I'm prepared to say that Trump does win Georgia. I'm prepared to give Wisconsin to Harris. These other states are just simply too close to call. And in the end, it is about turnout. It's about whether younger women vote, and they haven't in the past, whether union members and Latinos participate on the Republican side. I'm watching these very specific voter groups because they will make the decision. And right now, it really is a 50-50 race.
It's interesting to me, Frank, because I look at Nevada, and it's kind of fascinating because the early vote has done extraordinarily well. You look at Nevada, you look at Georgia, you look at some of these other states, and the early vote has done really, really well for Republicans.
Frank Luntz is a hack. Yeah, but he's lost a lot of weight. There's his Wikipedia picture. He doesn't look much happier, but... What's up with his beard? Some people can grow hair on the lower part of their face, which is what's happening to him. If you look carefully, you'll notice that I actually have a similar condition. Yeah, maybe this guy is a snake. Best known for developing talking points and other messages for Republican causes. His work has included insistence with Newt Gingrich's Contract America. Okay, yeah, it's all coming back to me now. Public relations support for the Israel Project. He advocated use of vocabulary crafted to produce the desired effect, including use of the term death tax instead of estate tax and climate change instead of global warming.
Do you see that as a trend, or what do you make of that?
It's a good point. I see it as a data point. And in the end, I'm watching these rallies to see, frankly, how many people show up, what the message is, whether they're communicating it. And both candidates seem to be hitting on all cylinders over the last 48 hours. For Donald Trump, if he wins in either Pennsylvania or Michigan, I don't see how he loses the election. But he's got to win one of those two states.
So is he really like 60 years old now? He doesn't look that old. I feel like he looks like he's in his mid-40s.
Harris, if she takes Georgia, which will be decided early in the evening, North Carolina early in the evening, those two states are two incredibly powerful bellwethers that we should know by 10 or 10:30, maybe 11 o'clock. So we won't know the winner until Wednesday or Thursday, but we will have a bellwether by late Wednesday evening, and I understand you're doing your show.
I do think it's funny and maybe a little bit indicative that the other networks, NBC and MSNBC, were giving primetime coverage to the Seltzer poll in Iowa. I don't even remember what this guy's fucking name is. You know? Evil white guy. Yeah, we'll take it. John Gould. They don't even want to put it in the title. Iowa poll reveals shocking findings in final days of 2024 race.
Okay, everyone, here we are. We have just 2 days left in the craziest campaign season most of us can remember, at least that I can remember.
You're blowing out the audio.
4 indictments, 34 felony counts, one switch at the top of the Democratic ticket. And
Never mind. I don't want to listen to Psaki. What's this? Somebody linked? Oh, Psaki. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Probably not. What else do we have in the link docket here? Oh yeah, I saw this one where they had Kamala Harris in chains in the Halloween parade.
This video shows the parade entry, a representation of Vice President Harris in chains, led behind a vehicle marked with former President Trump's name. Commissioner Ted Kopis says the disturbing display doesn't represent who we are in Westmoreland County.
The blame
Are you
falls
sure?
squarely on bad actors.
Not to like stereotype, but if you were going to make the case that your county isn't as racist as it seems like it is, you probably shouldn't have had this guy behind you. Like, again, I'm not saying I know anything about him. I'm not saying anything about... He does look like his name is John Chud. John D. Racist, yeah. That being said, from an aesthetic perspective, I think he's serving. Shirt fits. Good accessorizing. Glasses look a little cheap, but that's okay. He's got a great mustache.
Actors who sought to capitalize on the current environment of hyper-partisan blood sport politics, misinformation and disinformation, where seemingly no act is off limits.
The president of the Mount Pleasant
He is just white Hassan Lamau. Do you people meet people? Do you like look at people? Do you interact with people? Do you talk to people? Do you have like a large library of faces in your mind that you can relate to and call from and like make comparisons with, or is it all just like 5 people on the internet?
Volunteer fire department apologized for what happened. The borough's mayor says for 70 years, the fire department has never had a need to pre-screen parade entries.
I was astonished.
Really? Wait, really? Wait, you don't normally... Okay. I guess that's something that I would expect you would normally do, but I guess I've mostly spent my life in really big cities, so you would always have to, like... In a Halloween parade in, like, LA or Seattle, of course, yeah, you pre-screen stuff. But, yeah, in, like, a small community, I guess it's not as necessary. That tracks.
I just couldn't believe that somebody would stoop that low to do something like that in a kids' parade.
Please know that this type of display is not condoned or acceptable by the Borough of Mount Pleasant and the Mount Pleasant Volunteer Fire Department now or ever.
All here denounced the display as a despicable act targeting an event for children.
Lining the curb, kids who came out to get candy but got something else entirely different, and we must...
They got racism in their damn candy buckets. Oh, that's good. I wasn't planning on going long with today's stream because, like, we're doing that tomorrow, and right now I feel like the most we can do is kind of sit in our thumbs, you know? So here's what I'm gonna say. Here's what I'm gonna say to you guys. Boo? What do you boo? It's all happening tomorrow. It's like you get used to watching a sports streamer, and they're like the day before a big fucking playoff or something. They're like, yeah, well, tomorrow's the day, and you guys are like, well, don't you want to spend more time making predictions? Here's what I'm going to do. Tomorrow, the stream should be starting... I assume it's going to start at noon. That's the most sensible time for me to start the stream. I have to spend a lot of time today making burritos, apparently. So I need to do that. Wait, Vosh, what's happening tomorrow? Oh, nothing big. Look, concluding statement. I think there is reasonable evidence based on statistically unlikely polling results that the polls that we have seen, which have narrowed the race's odds down to basically 50-50 in every swing state, I think there is a very good chance of extensive poll herding. Poll herding, which is being done in part because pollsters are Cowards who don't want to release outliers because they don't want to stake their reputation on a claim that might end up seeing them get, like, you know, burned at the stake. Remember how much people distrusted pollsters after 2016, 2020, and 2022? Pollsters have gotten a lot of flack. A lot of it's also kind of undeserved, to be fair. People go after pollsters when their polling is inaccurate. That's not necessarily meaning the pollsters are wrong, you know? Like, there are margins of error, and people who aggregate polling are giving you odds, not guarantees. I think that pollsters, part of it is them being a bit cowardly. Part of it is them kowtowing to a political environment in which it is potentially, like, disadvantageous to certain sides to be clear on what you think the odds are. And part of it, I genuinely think, that a big part of this is that people are conducting polls and then running their polls by aggregated AI data of presumed voter behavior to model their polls based on pre-calculated odds that they think sound right. The models that they're using to analyze these polling results are it's like a feedback loop. They are using their bias to construct the models they're using to interpret the polls, and the polls they're getting are then being filtered through that biased model of analysis. If you haven't seen yesterday's stream, you got to see yesterday's stream. We went over a lot of stuff, and I'm pretty happy with the information that we obtained. So I think there's reasonable evidence that things are not as close as we think they are. I think another good point of evidence to this is the fact that, and this is kind of a vibes thing, look around you, dude. There are less Trump signs than there were before, and there are way more Kamala Harris signs. Democrat enthusiasm to vote is as high as it's ever been since 2008. Trump enthusiasm has waned down. We have seen failure after failure from Republican public officials and pundits, them falling off, them getting less attention. Additionally, just at the rallies, Trump consistently cannot fill a fucking rally. He can't fill a rally. Kamala Harris is surging in these rallies. Also keep in mind that in 2022, Democrats significantly outperformed polling expectations. The behavior of Republicans makes me think they're scared. I think there is a decent chance that Kamala sweeps. Is it guaranteed? No. I think it's possible. I think it's possible that Kamala Harris comes out stronger than anyone expected. And I think that it is possible that her victory is so substantial. So why the cynicism for the last month? I think that's a valid question. I genuinely think that I had not expected the poll herding to be as bad as I thought. I think the reason my cynicism is fading a little bit right now, well, I shouldn't say it's fading. I'm still pretty cynical. The reason I'm feeling a little bit better is because I guess I didn't really sit down and consider just how extensive the poll herding might have been. It was always something I expected. Poll herding always happens to some extent, but I never really sat down and went like, okay, let's really look at all of these swing states and compare them to all the polling data we had from 2020 and 2016. And if you look at all of that information, then it's like, wait, hold on, this is insane. We saw you do that live yesterday. Yes, my perspective has been changed. And I think that was spurred by the Iowa poll. That was what spurred my interest in, like, challenging this. Now, this isn't minimizing my cynicism at all. It's just that my cynicism is being directed against pollsters now. Again, none of this is guaranteed. None of this is guaranteed. Vosh, you ever going to be happy? I'm a socialist. No. I hope that Kamala Harris gets a sweep. Keep in mind that even if Kamala Harris does get a sweep, that doesn't fix all the problems in the world. At best, it postpones the GOP by 4 years. We will see. Will Kamala Harris fix all these underlying systemic issues that allow billionaires to swing the results of elections? Probably not. Will it win us the House, the Senate? Will she be able to get a single bill passed? No. Well, maybe. Not necessarily. What do you consider a sweep? if by the end of the night tomorrow, we see margins in the ballpark of Kamala Harris up +3 or +4 in North Carolina, that to me would be, because that would be indicative of the whole race. You know, that would be like a, you know, like a, okay, hey, we'll see. That would be big. What's also important to keep in mind is that it's also possible that Donald Trump wins. And I don't think Donald Trump can win in a sweep. I just flat out think that's off the table. I don't think it's possible. He could win in an agonizing, grinding to a halt, like they're still counting and recounting a week from now, kind of like it could be brutal, and that would be maybe like the worst mental health week for all of us ever, you know? A lot of people here, I mean, you'd be telling your therapist about this for a while. I mean, it'd be like 2016, but worse in a lot of ways. Like, it would objectively feel a lot worse than 2016. I don't know where you were at back in 2016. I had a feeling that Hillary was going to lose just based on, like, populist momentum. I was back in university at the time. Then in 2016, when she lost, I was like, wow, that's really bad. This will be real bad. Real bad. So, you know. But I still think it's more likely than not that Kamala Harris wins. We'll see. And I'll be here through it. I'll be right here. So she can't lose? Yes. Kamala Harris can't lose, and I stake my reputation on this. We'll see how it goes. Okay. I'll have the editors run that out as soon as they can. Now, I was going to read donations, but we do have a problem, and that problem is that I need to shit. So, you know, I'm going to prioritize my well-being here. That being said, before I can shit, there's something that I will actually delay. I will actually delay my my stream end for. I will read the donations tomorrow morning when we start stream, because we're going to have a few hours of time before the votes start getting, like, before we have anything to really talk about. Dye Workwear recently put out a thread on styling military clothing, and I think it's actually so sick, and I think it would actually appeal to a lot of people in my audience, even ladies, because alternative dressed ladies often like to style themselves in men's military clothing. There really isn't any women's military clothing, because military clothing is at most unisex. Historically, it's menswear. So there's a really nice... I have an M65 jacket back there. It's quite heavy. I would absolutely adore having an M43, because I think that looks quite nice. Also, I wanted to show you this really quick. First of all, love this guy. Think he looks fantastic. Okay. Second of all, I need to get a pair of chinos that fit me properly. Second of all, love these pants. They're fucking gorgeous. They're like $400 because they're Brycelands, of course. And right now, I'm kind of losing weight, so I don't want to buy pants that are expensive. Vosh, that's simply incorrect. There is absolutely women's military fashion. It's just dress uniforms, not fatigues. But that's not what we're talking about, really. Sorry, I didn't mean to invalidate or whatever. These look so good. If I ever, like, get down to a solid 34 or something, these would be worth getting. Leather jackets. But look at this, okay? Okay, this is the thing to me that looks so good, and I don't know how I would style it. The lining on military bombers. So wait, this is just the nylon bombers. But look at these linings. It's just the lining, so it doesn't have the exterior material. It's lighter. It just has the lining on the inside, effectively. It's styled. So it's warm, but it's not as heavy. It's lighter. Don't those look so nice? Don't you have to shit wash? What the fuck? Dude, pay attention! Anyway, this is all leading up to this. This man is my new style icon. Good Lord, look at that. Come on. Come on. You know? There we go. No one cares. No one cares. Okay, no, that's fine. That's fine. Just no, that's okay. That's all right. It's just ableism. That's what I get for being autistic. No, it's fine. Go shit, queen. Go shit, queen. Fine. Okay, sure. Fine. All right. No, fine. Sure. That's okay. Fine. Okay. No. Oh, you like it. You like it. Okay. Fine. Okay. You like it. Okay. That's great. That's great. No. That's fine. I'm going to send you over to Live Agar. Guys, tomorrow is the day. Tomorrow is the day. Tomorrow is the day. Everyone shape up. Drink your water. Make your food. Do whatever you can to get ready, okay? It's a big day. And it's not just going to be one day either, but today is the big day. I'm going to send you over to Live Agar. I hear she cares about politics. Take care. See you soon.